I don't know. I didn't put this together. You put this together. Does that mean we have a meeting this night?
We just leave them at time.
Yeah.
And still.
Are you done with Halloween, Sarah? It's
It's
like 5 days long this year. Yeah. That's,
Okay, we are at
yeah.
we are at the workshop portion of our meeting tonight, so Lori is going to be leading us this. Or do we have something on screen or? Because my screen's not on. Oh,
Give me a minute.
Good, Michael, how you doing?
I'm used to that.
Get it up.
Big change in the real estate world, man. $5 billion lawsuit.
Oh, shit. Yeah, Kelly Williams and
National Association of
Realtors.
Realtors.
Yeah.
Now they're going after a national wide lawsuit.
Hmm.
Fireside commissions. They said that like Remax had 2.8%, 2.4%. Keller Williams had 2.8. Price fixing on the buyer side.
So that's.
It's gonna be fun. For those that don't know how to negotiate. They lost 5,000 agents this week. Where are they gonna go? They turned in their license. Cancel all of them. They think if they get rid of it. Agents think that they're gonna be sued personally.
Okay, Laura, you can go.
Okay,
Please get us going.
hold on. So just a review, any questions, if anybody has, that's what we're here for. Let's see if this works. Please work.
Laura, bring your mic down.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
He's online.
Oh.
It's not here.
Okay,
It's not gonna be here.
we did have our budget review meeting with the committee. There were a few things that I thought I should be pointing out right now. First of all, if you start at the top at the general fund property taxes, that's at the very top. The $722,836 is about a 62% increase over last year property taxes. This is from the Grand County Assessor's August report. I'm mildly conservative because I don't know if the December report, if there could be any adjustments down, but this looks to be the revenue you'll be getting for the property tax for 2024.
Will that come down to election?
Yeah, on HH, if that passes, does that affect property values in 2024?
I don't know when it's supposed to be.
Or they would
That's
have
a-
to,
When they know.
that's worth looking into, because
I
that would
will-
bring that number way back down.
Valuations are. I'll find out and get
What's that?
that.
Okay.
I will look that up and double check.
Okay, thank you.
But thanks, Clark, for. One question that came up was the specific ownership tax. That's Fraser's share of the license plate fees. I didn't know that. I looked that up because the committee asked the question. So, town sales tax, everything has stayed pretty similar to the first time you've seen this. Oh, one other question was, the franchise fees are paid in from Comcast, Mountain Parks, and Excel Energy. So that was another one that was new to me. We're all kind of going through this together. I did do one reduction, it's basically the regulated industry fees. I reduced, the fees, the taxes that we'll receive from the, marijuana taxes. I reduced that slightly due to the fact is there's a Winter Park shop coming, or there's also the Grand Lake shop. Don't know how much that may impact our tax revenues for that one particular.
I think we'll definitely see a hit from the Winter Park one.
Mhm.
And other than that, if you see anything, please feel free to, anything comes up, going down through the revenue.
So nice to see that jump in grants. Congratulations to staff.
Yeah, that's down a little further. The interest earnings have increased. That's under miscellaneous revenue, 1036-100. The interest rates that are earned through Colorado Trust over the entire fund has been really huge this year because of the Fed increasing interest rates. I held it about where it is. I think it's going to might be higher, but if the Fed reduces interest rates next year, that number may come down a bit.
What about the community housing?
That is the short-term rental fee.
Okay.
That was increased, the increased revenue through the town. I can't remember when you guys passed it, but there was a revenue increase. That is a revenue increase right now. I also am having to go back through an audit. I do have an issue going on with, if it comes in through express bill pay is just putting everything under miscellaneous revenue. So I'm not done with that before we get to the final approval. That amount may go up. Because a lot of fees have been paid in and it's been put into the wrong general ledger account.
Okay. On
Not on
2023.
purpose. It's just what the system is doing to us
Yeah.
that I haven't been able to figure out how to fix. So I got to go in and dig it out. And then transfers from the general fund reserves, I'm anticipating similar levels to 2023, maybe a little lower. We did get, as Katie mentioned, the grant for the Clayton's Court, which was very welcome.
So that 500,000 match for that 25% match. Does that come out of, is that part of this deduction from the unassigned fund balance or?
Not yet. I'm still going to be working through that, Katie, because I'm still learning the different grant fundings and levels. That's another item that before the next meeting, I'll be going through that a little bit more carefully. Because the grant, there's the matching grants, this grant, that grant, and I get lost between them all right now. So some of those fund numbers have stayed the same, but I anticipate as soon as I get my head educated and wrapped around that,
You figured out.
they will possibly reduce.
So is that, do we pay that in 2024? That
So
match?
we will pay the match. If we're able to complete the project in 2024, then we'll pay the full match.
Okay,
So we have budgeted $600,000 for that infrastructure for the water line extension and asphalt. So that was the cost of what we needed to do at a bare minimum.
Yeah.
But it also functioned in that if we got the grant, it could work toward the match for the grant.
sweet.
So I'm wanting to maintain that $600,000 in case we have any overages. So we have some flexibility there. And once we finish that project, we have leftover, then we can put it somewhere useful.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Did we do a press release about that?
I will
Yeah.
once we get the award letter.
Okay, great.
It's
Don't
just
want to
kind of
jinx
an
it.
informal thing right now.
Great. Okay,
I think it's probably not go out before the election. but The press release.
Yeah.
That's just since it's being presented by Steve.
gotcha. Oh, wait.
We'll wait until we have the award letter.
What?
Did you scare off your friends?
He's online.
Do you have him as a co-host, Sarah Lewis?
Yeah.
One other item of note in expenditures, the Fraser Winter Park Police Department, the increase that was now the split between Fraser and Winter Park is 60-40. So if you notice down there on 1041-862, Fraser Winter Park Police Department, that did take quite a jump. But that was due to, all the increased calls and a little bit more sharing on Fraser's part on the increased manpower
And we'll
needed.
present that at the next meeting too, when we go to amend the IGA. It's based on the last 3 years of calls and service calls to Fraser, from Fraser, for Fraser. Yeah, just we've been growing, a lot of new commercial development in the last, I don't know, whenever that IGA was updated last 2008.
Nothing good happens after that, folks.
That's true.
Go home, stay home.
Especially
It's
midnight.
true.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, what percentage of the calls happen after 9 o'clock versus?
Oh, I don't have any idea. I mean, I could probably find out.
That's an interesting thought.
I mean,
Right.
we probably take more reports during the day just because that's when things like traffic accidents and thefts and stuff like that happen, but probably the more serious calls are happening after 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
And Glenn, that also includes you guys looking for land acquisition for the new police department headquarters? Generally,
Yes.
so some of you may know their lease expires 2028. They're looking for a new space for a police department. And that makes sense. You need to have your own space. So they're looking at some options in Fraser. And yeah, part of our IGA is to pay a proportion of the capital improvements that are associated with the police operation. And that'll be done through a 20 or 30-year bond or some type of financing mechanism to help distribute that burden.
Right.
So we're not looking at anything massive as far as cash payments for a new facility, which is nice.
So how about 153 Fraser Ave? Is that are modular that we reclaimed and are using for employee housing now, or which one's 153?
Right here.
Oh,
Oh, that's, this is that.
yeah, me
Okay,
thinking on
thank you.
That's,
Fraser Avenue.
Okay,
that
gotcha, that's
is
our front
the,
porch.
yeah, that's the front
That's the front
porch that
porch.
was the capital project you did approve.
Yep. perfect.
So that's 75,000 is for the town hall reservation, or renovations, excuse me. And then, basically it's been carried forward, $20,000 for maintenance. Hoping maybe we don't need that, but yeah, that is for the ramp and for the fix over the front door.
Lori, under capital asset fund expenditures, the first line, it's like 324810. It says capital project streets existing. And we budgeted $600,000 for it, and we only spent $600 this year.
Where are you down?
Where are you?
Wait a minute.
Read the whole number.
Capital asset fund 324810.
So you're,
Are you in the?
you're on
There's no way
towards
we
the
made
end.
that.
You're on like the last page.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
There we go. Last page,
The last page.
No, last.
Hold on, you know, I got,
324810. Page 6. That's
Yeah,
right, it's
page
not last. Page 6. Capitol Street.
come on. Quit it. My computer's being obnoxious.
Paul, do you know what line item we pulled for asphalt this year? We definitely did asphalt projects.
Yeah, I think it's, I think that's what that is. That's
Oh, I'm way too
paving.
far down.
saving expenditures from. I'm not seeing I'm not seeing, maybe it was I'm looking for the 2022 number.
Then include buyers in the one by the Murdoch Center.
So buyers would have come out of here, John's Drive would have come out of here, and the Safeway
Mhm.
frontage would have come out of here for this year. Well,
Okay.
the overage on Buyers Avenue to get the road stabilization.
Hold on just a second. Asset. Oh, I'm in Conservation Trust.
Look into that.
Closer, you're in 32s now.
There you go, that's it.
Third, which one was it, Brian?
Yeah, that one.
That one right there?
Yep.
Byers Avenue is completed. There was a couple of projects. The John's
John's Drive paving.
Drive paving and,
Safeway-
and what?
Safeway frontage road paving.
Oh, Safeway frontage roads, but I don't have the whole list. I found John's Drive. I didn't find Safeway. So is that about it?
And then we have costs for paving in Wapiti Meadows for that massive water break
Mm.
restoration in there. But I don't have the notes on here.
But it said we've only spent $7,600.
That's going to be, changing because we've been making the larger payments to Conroy. Really large payments to Conroy. And I will be, this year to date was as of 9/30. I haven't closed October yet, but I'll be working on that, and that number is going to change. And also a little bit of an audit as to where things are being put at the time.
There's another.
Sure you don't. Yeah, I don't mind.
But there's another, street improvements line item. I'm curious what the difference is between.
Which number?
10, 60, 725.
So that's the normal paving that I'm gonna start using for paving, but that's also the sidewalk project in here that you guys approved.
Okay.
Oh, good,
Yeah, that is
wonderful. On Norgren?
Norgren and Eisenhower.
So essentially,
Yep, on the west side of the highway.
the one up top.
So we'll have a safe route to school.
Is town staff doing the paving and this.
Well, this is just looking to do, so I have a note to reconcile 324810 against 106725, make sure that we're not putting the same thing in.
Yeah, streets and streets.
Right now, what I have in there is the existing concrete for repairs plus the $150,000 you approved for the Eisenhower and Norgren sidewalks.
What are the professional service, other professional services for?
It's, yeah, I know, it's a long one. I get
There,
lost in.
the professional service, 1065. Other professional service.
Hold on just a second.
1045.
Likely
1045
referring
with-
to a comprehensive plan update.
Is that outside plan or?
Yeah,
It's gonna be, we're gonna put that out through the RFP process and, see what responses we get. Typically, they're planning consultants, engineers, that kind of stuff. Oh.
And then I have a question on improvements. Paul, you and I talked about this, but concrete curb replacement's an issue, and particularly in the village, it's 13 years old. And on some of the brand new stuff that I just finished, they got whacked for good or by some plow. So Winter Park does a curb replacement program every year or so. And I literally have dealt with, like, there's a hairline crack in this concrete park, we don't want to accept it, and then you get it, I fix it, you accept it. You snow plow it, and the whole section are taken out by your snow plow. And it's starting to look dated, we're obviously gonna be working on trying to finish some projects there. And a large majority of those curbs in the village area that are now 13, 14 years old are you guys. And I'd like to know what's the plan for implementing, like, we're gonna require curbs and want them to be perfect, we should have some sort of a program to be regularly replacing sections of curb, like Winter Park does so many thousands of lineal feet every single year. Accidents happen, and snow plowing is hard, I get it, trust me, I deal with it day in, day out, we plow a lot of snow. But we still, you know, if we smash something like that, we fix it, replace it. So I would just like to know what's the plan? It's looking pretty not great, on some of the original curb we put it. And then some of the new stuff, we just finished the Dell stuff. Got creamed pretty good last year. By you guys, so. Is there anything into that, Lori? Or Paul? Or-
yeah, Paul, I've got.
Small
I've got
amount.
none.
As we've talked about, we're gonna restart that program next year. Street superintendents and I are working on getting a list together so we can make a priority list and start using the funds that are budgeted every year for this to start doing that again. That is
How much is budgeted for 2024, Paul,
125,
for curb replacement?
somewhere in here, something like that, yeah.
Is that in that street improvements number or capital projects?
Street improvements number.
Street improvements number.
No, that's great. I just want to make sure that there's a program.
So we're looking to get that started again because, you know, we've had that discussion, but also just knowing that that hadn't been done the last couple of years is to start looking at that with sidewalk improvements that we're already planning. And then taking care of defective curbs and V-pans, things that, like he's mentioned, that are starting to fail that they're due. So we're getting a list and then make a priority list and start using that funding.
The crack sealing hadn't been done in, I think, 2 years now. So is that in that number too? The town used to crack seal every year.
Do we not crack still this summer?
We didn't do any crack sealing.
We didn't do any crack sealing.
Okay. We didn't do it last year either. So cheaters without crack seals is kind of a big deal in our environment.
Okay. Check it out.
So, I mean, I'm basically just saying, I think your street improvement number might need to be a little bit bigger than what's in this budget. One concrete's gotten super expensive.
Okay.
Uh,
Valid points.
which I know personally,
Mhm.
so.
That one.
You might be able to piggyback with Winter Park, like what we did on the paving, that was pretty well.
Yeah,
So
that's,
They did a good job taking this out. That would be- whoever wants the quantity.
That's the anticipated plan, is to partner together to get a better RFP out, lower price. Yeah.
Any others?
What's the art in public places, big number? What is it? What's that, is it creating something, is it capital improvement, or is it, where is it, and what's it for? I mean, I'm all for art,
Yeah.
I'm just curious, it's a big number, I'm curious where the money is.
What's the number?
Which line
What's the number now that you were looking at?
It was, it's 106740, right below capital projects. It was at 82,000. That includes the Mural Fest.
sculptures.
Sculptures,
Another
Mural
line item.
Fest, lighting, for the Christmas lights.
Does
Um,
Fire and Ice come out of that too, or not?
Yeah, I think, yeah, some will. I'll probably allocate some to, because the sculptures, the ice sculptures and everything, parts of it may go. There'll be a balance between that and, special events.
Yeah, why wouldn't you put the Mural Fest under special events? Cause it's not like long, I think of art, like we do art in public places on projects in other communities. It's like long-term art, like we'll spend a lot of money on a piece of art and it's there. And a Mural Fest is a festival that is kind of short-term murals that might get scattered around but they're usually not here for a year or longer.
But it's a wonderful event for the town
It's a
of
great
Fraser,
event.
and
It's
people
a
enjoy it.
special event. So excuse the
Brings
numbers.
care.
We don't understand what we're spending on special events, and I think special events need to pay for themselves, they might. But we don't know because it's buried in the art in public places.
I can look into that. This is like, my first year doing this, and I see a lot of things that have just been, I'm coming in this and looking at it from a historical perspective, and generally I'm just trying not to break what's not broken. But I do see things in here that I might want to look at a little bit more closely moving forward.
That's great.
So I'm just kind of, trying not to make big waves yet. I'll do that later. I have been known to do that on occasion, and sometimes it doesn't work out well for me because people get mad and then they want it put back where it was. So we'll be working through that process, and I'll probably have more input for next year into where I'd really like to see some of these things go. And I need a few things I gotta bury, I mean, Brian had to ask me what was the Fraser Mustang. Fortunately, I've lived here long enough. I know what it was.
I do too.
So does Katie.
Jerry DeRocher.
We all
Fraser
went to
Mustang.
Lonnie's at the Fraser Mustang
We used to get our video.
and videos and occasionally gasoline.
If you didn't rewind, pay the fine.
Yes, you did. The whole
Jerry
quarter,
DeRocher.
wasn't it? 25 cents or
My
whatever.
neighbor. He is not a nice person.
So there will be some changes possibly coming. But like I said, I'm still just kind of easing into it.
The public works budget increased pretty significantly, looks like our salaries, is that just more staff? or no
We're
difference?
fully staffed
Fully staffed.
for Public Works.
Good job, Paul.
Yeah,
Oh,
Way to go. So that's the difference over 22 and 23.
yes.
Okay.
And all of we're having successful CDL driver test taking. One of our employees passed today. We're really proud of her. She'll be a great asset.
Awesome.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just a question on the transportation, that's through the special. Help me out,
1%.
no, but what's the transportation, the TAC? So is that what the transportation section is we're TAC related? It's in-
Yeah, that's the
so it's
1%. Yeah, that's the 1% tax that we don't get to spend anywhere else, and that is for the lift.
Transportation O and M.
Yeah.
And how's that doing? You're, am I reading this? It's $1 million in 24 and it was 600,000 last year. Am I reading that right?
What's your number, honey?
Oh, sorry, I'm on 124610.
Thank you. You're younger than me. I could call you honey.
Yeah, we had
Remind me of Fran Cook.
She was a good friend.
we
I think it was Sweetie, actually.
She wasn't, yeah.
I'll go with her.
we had to put out to bid who the lift was going to be managed by, and that was the best. That was the cheapest option out of anyone that responded.
They came up mainly because of First Transit, who is, well, I think they have a new name now, but anyway, the transit service that the Lyft employees basically 25% wage increases to meet the basic needs for them to be able to, I guess, live here. So they had a major update for costs. Inflation's related to fuel, parts, maintenance, had a big impact on what we've seen last year.
But does the 1% then bring in $1 million?
No, it
It's
doesn't.
getting close. I mean,
It's getting close, though.
So, you know, the numbers related to the transportation for the lift and for the police department, those are both based on them being fully staffed, which unfortunately hasn't been the case. So one thing to note is when we come through the spring audit season, they'll provide a credit on our account for those line items. So that's why you may see, like, for example, the actual for 2023 is 574 when we budgeted for $1 million. There's been some differences there. You also have a new facility that's coming online. That's a big capital expenditure for the lift service. So we're paying a proration of that as well.
Well, wasn't that funded mostly by the DOT grant?
Largely by grants, but they still had a large match as well. It was a 25% match. It's a $20 million facility. I think they got 13 to 15 million for it.
So are we gonna be in a deficit position on transportation?
So we've built up our reserves for that a little bit. Over the next year. (2022) audit numbers was 1.2 million for revenues.
So which is
So
the
we're getting
revenue
close. So I
number
mean, there's likely,
for that?
if things, you know, hopefully we have a good sales tax that continues to keep moving forward, economic development continues to move forward and support that. But at some point, we may be looking at conversations for changing frequencies, modifying routes, whatever makes sense, and have that engagement, different routes and different areas of town, and make an informed decision if it comes down to that.
Is it safe to say we don't have any funds to expand the transportation system beyond where it's at?
Safe to say.
Mm-mm.
Besides adding a stop in Victoria Village, probably, or moving something around.
So where is the, what's the number for the revenue from that tax, that 1%? Or is it,
That is
Dash.
That is,
on page 4.
yeah, yeah.
The restricted revenue fund, 12/31/100.
there we go, thank you.
One of the routes is going to go through Rome. So it's I think it's the Beaver Village route. We'll now go around, stop by Rendezvous Event Center as well.
So
So
what parks paying for that?
Yeah, Winter Park will pay for that.
Correct.
That's their
Yeah.
version of all.
correct. But that's the only expansion this year.
Well, I'm just thinking long-term
Yeah, there's not money.
sustainability.
There's not money to
I have
To
a
do
little
more.
bit of development left to do,
Mhm.
maybe the rest of my life. And I'm just kind of curious, like, I don't think our sales tax is gonna go at the pace of that transportation expansion cost. So I think you've got to come up with some long-term, more sustainable ideas.
You know, Andy Miller really wanted to get the ski area to do a seat tax. That was his thing, and other communities have done that.
Clark Lipscomb, and I was on that. Right?
Yep. Get this, have the ski area do a add-on to every lift ticket that's sold and, yeah. Yeah. So that might be a resource
Yeah,
for us.
unfortunately, you don't probably have any say in or any influence whatsoever.
Well,
Wanted to
I
make
have
that
influence.
deal When they did the deal.
And Winter Park,
Awful
also.
expense. Anyway,
I mean,
I don't know if Winter Park even has.
what's 25, 50 cents, the price of a lift ticket these days. So anyway, food for thought.
well, it's just something we need to think about in our projects as we go forward and expand further out. We'll have to be cognizant of where that's at. So.
I mean, I think our intent is to make sure that everyone is serviced within the towns of Fraser and Winter Park. So if you continue building across the tracks, and that's more people that are paying more taxes in, hopefully we're making more money from it and we can provide that service.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great theory. I think I'm not sure the math works, that's all.
Yeah, it might
That's
not.
what I'm looking at right here.
It might not, and then we just have to cross that bridge again. The other component, of course, is if this gondola happens, then the lift doesn't need to go to the ski resort, or less often anyway. And then
We
we
talk
can,
about the gondola that we proposed from Grand Park.
no,
Fraser?
the Winter Park one.
Oh, I don't know much about that.
Yeah.
That won't affect us at all. Because we pay for what's in Fraser, not Winter Park, you know.
Yeah, that didn't help.
No.
But the ski resort could contribute to the two towns because they're using less.
Still didn't help the Fraser Ridge.
We can.
The gondola from Fraser to the ski area, that would be helpful.
It would be helpful.
That's a couple days away then. I proposed that actually last year. Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Philip?
I don't know who that is.
Lewis.
Oh, Lewis?
Yeah, if you're gonna let people speak from the audience, could you make them come to the podium?
I have a mic in front of him, so
In front of who?
in front
It's
of
Clark,
the.
Lewis, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but I couldn't hear you earlier mumbling in the audience.
Where's our portable mic?
Yeah,
There we go.
Don't worry about it. Okay, I'll just put it in place.
No, it's not, doesn't.
Yeah,
mic.
I think I'm done with questions. Hey, Lewis, Clark Lipscomb for the record. I'm the guy in the audience that's been asking all the questions.
any
Okay, well,
Questions, comments? You want to continue on then? Or was it just questions and comments and?
Well, we're actually meeting on the water fund budget on Monday. And I was just working with Joe today on the JFOC budget. So those numbers are gonna adjust anyway. If you want to go over anything down there, anything that you have concerns about, we can. But before the next board meeting, and probably right about when I meet with the committee again, those numbers are gonna get firmed up. So
Okay.
we're getting really, really close to getting the general fund wrapped up. And so that's kind of where we're at. But if anybody has any concerns or questions about the water fund,
Anybody? Prior to the next meeting?
Well, are we gonna go over it? Executive session later?
For GFOC budget, do we have a draft for that?
I emailed it to you. Do you want me to print you some out?
Yeah, I'll print them out.
Okay.
We may not get there. Okay, anybody else from the public have any questions here in the audience or online? Raise your hand. Digitally. On the budget. Okay, board, nobody else has anything else on?
But if you do, if anybody is previewing, going over and reviewing these and anything pops up, do feel free to email me or call me directly. And I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up later.
So I guess I have a question.
Okay.
So of course, we're in the red. 1.7 million for general fund expenditures over new revenues. What is our,
Where are you? Hold on.
I'm on page 4. Under all the general fund revenues, and the last line says general fund expenditures over
Oh.
revenues.
Okay.
So, what's our fund balance? Do we have? So if we have to pull those monies out of our,
The number we want to be more interested there, Katie, is as you go from the top, the 9,876,836. That's the revenue totals.
okay,
Then you then we have the new revenue totals. Separate. Our expenditures are 9,499,000. So you want to pay more attention to that 377,360
okay,
because that is in the black. That's the one I don't want to have turn red
gotcha.
because that is general fund revenue over expenditures. The general fund expenditures over new revenues, that's just pertaining to the 9 million, which is only picking up that new revenue 7 million. So it is saying that we're a little low, hopefully we could do a little better on new revenues. But the real number that is the key to whether we're in big trouble or not is the general fund revenue over expenditures, because that's the total.
Okay, thank you for.
We've budgeted pretty conservatively too on a lot of these items. If you look at 2022 audited numbers, in 2020, 3, as far as the budget goes, I mean, we're running about $1 million over in revenues as predicted there. So we're anticipating, still being conservative because we don't know what's gonna happen next year, right?
I have just one more question, Lori, on the Fraser Housing Authority. It's running in a pretty big deficit position, it looks like. It's getting funded by the general fund, is that right? So it's like 390,000 in expenses that are budgeted. Let's see, it's got 300 grand in professional services, and I'm just thinking, like, we just did that regional housing authority. So we basically have 5 housing authorities now in the county.
One that has a funding stream.
One that has a funding stream, but the 4 others all presumably have similar administrative expense.
So,
It's kind of crazy.
yeah, which line, what's your number?
It's on page 7. And it's basically the 60/40 310 through 60/4900. But I think, Lori, it's showing 390,000 in expenditures.
I got this page 9.
Yeah, and I don't know the application fees, the bedroom fee of $150,000. Where's that revenue come from? What's it applying for? It's a lot of application fee revenue.
That was the short-term rental fee.
Okay.
But here's where some of the tweaking and working out is going to happen. One suggestion is to have the short-term rental fee, which is up in the community housing, way up on under administration, or to bring it down here. I need to kind of sit down with the town manager and review some of the choices that have been made where some of these amounts are carried. And so right now I'm kind of carrying what was in there before, kind of doing the blind leading the blind,
So we went through an RFP process last year. We entered into an agreement with Mountain Affordable Housing Development for Victoria Village. I think the total of that agreement is about 700 something thousand for all the pre-construction work to include the workshop series, the master plan, the infrastructure layout, the wetland analysis, mitigation, that planning, the building a bridge through those wetlands and across St. Louis Creek. So they're pretty close. I would say they're at about maybe 90% complete with that portion. So we're working through the part that you have budgeted here for professional services. That is paying for the remaining amount that we have for that contract that has not been paid this year.
Okay, but just for the community's sake,
Mhm.
I would like to know as a taxpayer, et cetera, and I think the community, what's Victoria Village costing? Like, why would you not have a Victoria Village? That should be capitalized, not an operational expenditure of the housing authority. Because that's a cost basis item that should be going in your cost basis from a GAAP accounting perspective. I realize it's government accounting. But still, I mean, Victoria Village, given the scale of that project, guys, that should have its own budget line item on here. I mean, y'all should have a whole segment of here's Victoria Village capital expenditures, and you shouldn't be running it through the housing authority.
Yeah.
Because your housing authority really should be zero like it was in 22, particularly with the regional housing authority deal. Because I mean, one of my big issues is look, we have 5 housing authorities, and how much are we spending on administrating 5 housing authorities? When frankly, the Grand County Housing Authority should have been our regional housing authority for the whole county and should have done what they were set up to do in 1979. So if you look at the expenditures of the administrative cost of these housing authorities, and particularly the new regional housing authority that now has a voted in mill levy tax base, that's where those expenditures should be. And I don't think we should be incurring expenses operating really our Fraser Housing Authority that's effectively now a partner in the regional housing authority.
Good point.
My opinion, but.
Um,
And I definitely don't think
I agree
Victoria
once we get
Village should be
going.
getting buried under Fraser Housing Authority. I think that needs to be a front and center. That's a huge project.
Yeah.
That the town's undertaken, and I think it's only fair that everybody is aware of and realizes what this stuff costs.
Yeah.
So it's very expensive.
We can look at adding a line item for it. I mean, yeah, it is a big project. It is a temporary project, but we can look at that if that's something the board wants to do.
I
We can,
think we should too.
no, it's a good idea.
Yeah, it holds us a lot more accountable and it's a lot more transparent.
Exactly.
Yeah, once we
Okay.
get, once we
It's
finally,
getting
we're
going.
close, once we get through the budgeting process right here on the Excel spreadsheet, we'll be looking at updating it on the ClearGov, which is gonna be a software published through our website. It's gonna be able to break everything down, but we can add that line item, so it is a dedicated line item, so it's, I guess, easier to track.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other comments from anybody?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
I don't see any more comments online or here,
Good
so
questions. Thank
let's
you.
take
Thank- Yeah, yeah, some good comments.
a 10-minute break and we'll open the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Town of Fraser's regular meeting for November 1st, 2023 at 7 PM. Can I please have a roll call?
Eileen Waldo.
Brian Cirkvenick.
Al Quinn.
Katie Souls.
Louis Gregory.
And Philip Vanderneel. We are going to pull the consent agenda off tonight's agenda because we need to make a correction to the minutes. So if I could have an approval of the agenda with that.
I so move.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Perfect. Next is open forum. This is when the audience, the public can address the town board. If you're here in the building, raise your hand physically, online, digitally. You come up to the podium, state your name, if you live in the town of Fraser or not, and you'll have 3 minutes. And this is for items not on the agenda. So if you want to talk about something on the agenda, that'll be later on. So items not on the agenda. So let's start, and you can't come back. So you get one chance at this. So can't bank your time. You can't give your time to somebody else. So you get one shot at this. The board is not likely to respond back to you now. We'll take it under consideration and move forward. So anybody here in the building that would like to address the board for items not on the agenda, now is the time. Matt?
So I've been on the quest for the tallest blue spruce in Old Town.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, my name is Matt Barlow. I live across the street at 138 Fraser Avenue. So the quest for the tallest blue spruce. I talked with Rondo. His mother moved here in 1942, planted her blue spruce and aspens in the 60s, but it is pretty short compared to the one I think at 142 Eisenhower. I'm tentatively naming him Samson because Samson was here when Eileen moved here, and he's going to be here when everyone in this building is gone. I'd like to see a government mandate in Fraser that states that no building can be taller than a blue spruce tree. So when you walk around town, you can always see a blue spruce taller than all of the buildings. I think our new brand should revolve around this to symbolically elect Sampson to our town board. Oh no, wait. Fraser has a tree for its mayor? Now that would be funky. I see that town has already drawn up the real estate contracts before the pending vote on 2B. It's got me concerned that we've spent a lot of time and resources on something that may or may not happen. When you're going through the presentation, I'd like you to look at the first picture of the Fraser appraisal of the mural park. And it shows a full parking lot currently in use that we may trade for a project 5 years down the road. Sounds like the town has a sense of urgency for this. You put it in the ballot on an off year, an off cycle from the mayoral election. I don't know if this is a lame duck mayor pushing for an agenda. Does the town and the town board have the same passion for this? Art Center, a $14 million long-term project that may or may not happen. That's all I have tonight. Thanks, folks.
Thanks. I would like to remind everybody that there is an election in April. And that would be a great chance for you to get on the town board. So I would encourage everybody that cares about Fraser and wants to make change to Fraser to run for a board seat for the town of Fraser and help be a decision maker from this side of the table. So,
Run for mayor too.
and mayor, you can run for mayor too, because I'm not. So anybody else here in the audience? Sorry, sir, I don't know your name.
Hi, Tony Eason, 53 Trails Crossing, Fraser. Just make a comment about the RMU project, the Riverwalk mixed use rezoning, and just a couple of things. One, certainly not against the development of the project. Actually, I think it's a very good idea. It's an interesting piece of property back there. But I do have a problem with the fact that there's no comprehensive plan for what this is going to look like. And I'd put it this way, if somebody came up to one of you folks tomorrow, a voting resident of Fraser, and said, hey, this sounds great. What's it going to look like in 6 or 8 years? You know, the answer is, I don't know. There's no plan. And we're leaving it up to the developers, which, to be fair and full disclosure, I also have an investment in a commercial property. So I get it. My issue is that with no plan, you're pitting the best interests of the developers, which is, you know, maximize return on investment as fast as possible. Hallelujah, as it should be, with the long-term benefits and needs and wants of the residents of Fraser, which is your responsibility. And I think it opens up a real potential problem when you don't know what it's going to look like, and you're hoping that the developers somehow keep the best interests of the residents and the long-term interests of the community in mind. I think that's a roll of the dice. No offense. I think a plan is super important for you folks. I think it's important for the community to be able to see what this should look like, how they can get involved with it. And I understand, you know, this is one of the mechanisms to do that. But I really don't think the vast majority of people have any idea what's going on there. I kind of think that relaxing the zoning regs to increase flexibility is without also making sure that there's a plan in place that they have to work with parameters set by a committee in the town and people involved with this, is, you know, you're weighting this heavily in the direction of the developers at the expense of the community. You wouldn't renovate a kitchen without a plan, and you wouldn't say to the contractor, hey, I hope whatever you do, it's going to meet what I want. This is, I thought about this since we had the meeting in September. There's no language in the site review plans, as far as I can tell, when people said, hey, well, are we going to have a wall of buildings with 0 setback, 45 feet tall, using 95% of the building lot? And some of the conversations going on, including from the gentleman from Case, was, don't worry, there's a site plan review. Well, there's no language limiting any of the buildings or
But you're
builders.
3 minutes up.
Okay, well, you need teeth to be able to say no.
Right.
And right now you have 0 language. And there's a history in this town of lack of language and weak language being taken advantage of. And you're opening yourself
you.
up to not say, to have anything. You won't be able to say no.
Okay, thank you. Can we give a 10-second reminder when we get down to 10 seconds? Please remind whoever's up there that their time is about out. Anybody else from here in the audience on items not on the agenda? Okay, anybody on the audio or online? I can't see. Going once. Twice. Done. Okay. Can I have a motion to leave the town board and go into?
You've got one hand.
What?
You got one hand.
I already went through, but yeah, okay.
You allowed them to
Yep,
comment?
let him go. Going once, going twice, going 3 times.
Okay.
Okay. Well, so we're new to this.
Okay.
Hi, this is Joe Landon, 62 Meadow Trail. Would love to get the name and the address of the gentleman that just spoke. Thank you.
You want me to say it again?
No,
Okay.
you guys can figure that out.
He said, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? Now that we've opened it back up. Anybody else? Okay. We are now, can I have a motion to suspend the town board and move into the liquor authority?
I so move.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Kent, are you?
Yeah, I think Antonette's probably gonna set it up and then I'll lay out the procedure.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Tonight we have a liquor license application in the packet. The application is a Simple Coffee Co. They filed an application for a new beer and wine liquor license. They are located at 4060 Xerox Street, Unit A. They did file an application on September 11th. In the packet, we do have the attachments. We have the liquor license application, the individual histories, the architect's drawing, the proof of publication, liquor finding facts, and a petition to the Liquor Licensing Authority, and then resolution 2023-1101. So in this application, pursuant to the statutes 44.3.312.1, the applicant did provide their application again on September 11th, 2023. The notice of the public hearing was posted by the town clerk on Thursday, October 22nd, at least 10 days prior to the public hearing. And it was posted in the newspaper on October 19th, 2023. And so according to the beer and wine license, the statutes, they shall be issued to persons selling malt and vinous liquors. They do not, the license type does not allow them to sell hard liquor to the public. It is for consumption on the premises, and the license will be required to have light sandwiches and snacks available for consumption during business hours. They are not required to have full meals for this type of liquor license. The restrictions for the new license. So the town has eliminated the 500 feet restrictions in the town code. 1 year preceding this application, there was not a denial of this type of application because there was not one. And again, the boundaries that the town considers when they look at liquor licensing is the Fraser Valley Metropolitan Recreation District boundaries. And Winter Park has 49 liquor outlets, Tabernash has 3, and Fraser now has 18 liquor licenses currently.
Can you hold on for just a second?
Yes.
Okay, can you reverse 10
I
seconds?
can. So when we consider the liquor licenses, we do look at the Fraser Valley Metropolitan Recreation District boundaries or what are set. And within those boundaries, the town has 18 licenses. Winter Park has 49 and Tabernash has 3. We did conduct the Winter Park Police Department did conduct a background investigation for Olivia Youngs, who was our applicant. There was no record found or no negative information. Tonight is the public hearing. The applicant did provide a petition that was circulated in town to show preponderance of evidence that the liquor license is wanted by the residents of the town. Let's see what else we got here. So within the packet, you have that resolution 2023-1101, and the Liquor Licensing Authority can either approve the resolution, you can deny the resolution, you can take 30 days to consider, or you could go into an executive session should the board decide to do that also. Staff is recommending approval of this liquor license. We do have the applicant here in the audience tonight also. So I will allow Kent to go over the proceedings of what will happen for the public hearing.
Sure. Thanks, Antoinette. So just so everybody understands how we'll proceed tonight, these liquor license hearings are quasi-judicial in nature. And so it's semi-formal, but not super formal. So when anybody who comes up and speaks first needs to be sworn in by Antoinette, just like if you were in a court of law. The way it'll proceed is we'll have the applicant come up first, give an opening statement, kind of tell about their desire to have this liquor license, what their business is about, that sort of thing. Anything else they think is relevant to what the board needs to know to make a decision tonight. Then we'll open it up to anybody who wants to come and speak either in support or opposition of this application. And then we'll give the applicant an opportunity to come back up and speak to that support or opposition if they so desire. And then, once we do those 3 rounds, then the board will make a decision, as Antoinette indicated, one of those 4 choices. Or you're free to ask questions of anybody and interrupt at any time. So with that, I would say, let's have the applicant come up and give the opening statement.
Or tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay.
Hello, my name's Olivia Youngs. My address, I live in Granby, but I own Simple Coffee with locations both in Granby and Fraser. It's fairly straightforward. We've been in business this is our 5th year. We have not pursued a liquor license in the past because we haven't really had the space that would make sense to do so. It's been fairly coffee focused up until now. With the moving into the Coastal Lake building and the newer space, bigger space, more highway visibility, we are hoping that a beer and wine license will mainly just increase foot traffic, get more people in the doors, or take advantage of our very close access to the bus stop, and then hopefully play really well with our neighbors, the distillery and the soon to be Birdie Lounge, who will have later hours, the full hard liquor license. And as far as the kinds of wine and beer, we're going to keep it super simple, which is like our entire thing, probably a rotating list from super small, probably woman-owned vineyards and winemakers across the world that I have been working on making relationships with. Pretty standard. We just want to kind of increase our marketability and sales that we can make, and we'll increase our food menu along with that. So we will have like the sandwiches and soups and breakfast burritos, happy hour, après-ski type things. So that's the gist of it.
Questions, board?
Out of curiosity, how come you're not applying for a full liquor license?
I really am trying to avoid becoming a nightlife bar situation, and I haven't seen many coffee shops do that very well. Like, I'm trying to keep the quality high. Coffee wise will be first and foremost a coffee shop with beer and wine underneath that umbrella. And I also really want to not step on the toes of our neighbors and hopefully enhance their business so people can come to us first, come to them after they're done with our happy hour or whatever, and they open, mainly the distillery and the Birdie Lounge and Fishers, who have more of the nightlife crowd, which is not necessarily our vibe. So be kind of an all day block situation.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you have an opening date? Yeah.
That's like the question of the hour. It's we're aiming for early December-ish, mainly before Christmas. We'll see if my father / contractor is in charge of that timeline, but hopefully we'll sooner rather than later, before ski season really kicks in, is the goal. Yeah, right. Fingers crossed.
Double cross.
Yeah.
Board good? Okay,
Board good.
all right, thanks. Is there anybody else that would like to come up and speak either for or against this application? All right, doesn't look like it. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
What's the board's pleasure?
I think it'll be a great addition to town.
Agreed.
So you have to want to make a motion, or do we have to?
Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, make a motion.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2023-1101, Simple Coffee Company beer and wine liquor license.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, congratulations.
Okay.
Okay, can I have a motion to close the Liquor Authority Board and move back into the Town of Fraser Board?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now discussion and possible action, and the first item is resolution 2023-1102, approving final plats and final plan development plan for Alpenglow Planning Area 2W.2. And Garrett, our wonderful town planner, is gonna lead us on this one.
Mayor, trustees, thank you for your time this evening. Before I begin with the presentation, I have a updated copy of the resolution that I'll pass out to you all.
Right.
And for trustee Gregory, I apologize, but I'll have a slide with the updated language in the resolution at the end of the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so thank you all for your time this evening. The item before you is for the Alpenglow at Grand Park Development. This is in planning area 2W.2, as shown on the image here. Brief overview of the development. Applicant property owner is Grand Park Development LLC. The property is located in the vicinity of Old Victory Road and American Willow Drive. Again, this is planning area 2W.2. The land use that is proposed is 204 multifamily residential units with a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, as shown there. The property is zoned as planned development. It is part of the Grand Park Plan Development District Plan. And today's request is approval of the final plat and final planned development plan for this site. Just a quick overview of the timeline. So in June 2005, that is when the overall plan development district plan for Grand Park was approved. The Planning Commission approval for this specific site was approved with conditions in February of last year. And since that time up until around September, the applicant has been addressing those conditions of approval that came with after the Planning Commission meeting. And has now addressed all those conditions of approval to a satisfactory degree to be approved by the Board of Trustees this evening. So the structure of this presentation follows the staff report that is in your packets, but just to highlight some of the items that were reviewed and some of the kind of highlights of this proposal. What you see here is the existing plan for the 2W.1 planning area. And what is proposed with this development is covers 2W.2, but it also amends a slight portion of 2W.1. This area circled here originally was proposed, to plat as residential lots. American Willow was initially planned to end at a cul-de-sac. And with this development proposal for 2W.2, American Willow is now proposed to potentially expand and connect to Highway 40 at an intersection with Rendezvous Road. Staff is in support of this change. It will help divert traffic away from Grand Park Drive and that area, and just help provide multiple routes for traffic into and out of the Grand Park area. Also within the packet was a table showing a density transfer that comes along with this proposal. This is simply a map view of what this proposed density transfer entails. So on the top left is planning area W5. This is the area kind of covered by Elk Ranch Road and the homes along that area. And then 2W is to the bottom right. So with this proposal, there's a transfer of 9 residential units from 5W to 2W. What this means is that the 5W planning area will have 13 residential units remaining, whereas 2W, if approved, would be maxed out in terms of its residential units. However, I also want to note that planning area 2W does have lodging and I believe commercial uses also approved. But as far as residential uses, this would be capped out unless any other density transfers are approved. As far as required parking, these tables provide a summary of what is required and what is being provided. So the breakdown is that only 297 parking spaces are required per our code and based on the mix of bedroom unit sizes. However, the applicant is providing 436 parking spaces across surface parking, garage parking, etc. So well more than what is required. So just to highlight that again. Required snow storage. The applicant is required to provide snow storage area equal to 1/3 of the paved surface area, and they are meeting that actually just slightly above at 34% instead of 33%. And then common open space, per the plan that was adopted in 2005, the 2W planning area is required to just provide 10% open space area. And currently they're providing well beyond that at 8.9 acres as opposed to 2.7. In terms of lighting, the lighting plan that was submitted included the construction of 7 streetlights, as shown with the red circles there, primarily at the entrances and then along American Willow. These proposed streetlights are very similar, identical in nature to the existing streetlights that are within the Grand Park development already, as shown to the right. 2 key things that I also wanted to point out that are not really reviewed at this time. The building heights that are proposed. So per that 2005 Plan Development District Plan, this planning area can actually go as tall as 75 feet. So just want everyone here to be aware of that now. The building elevations are not reviewed until the building permit process, but they are allowed to go up to 75 feet. Another thing that I also wanted to note is that exterior lighting on those buildings would also be reviewed during the building permit process. Staff's recommendation for you all this evening is approval with the following 2 conditions. Item number 1 is frankly a very minor, almost inconsequential comment from our engineering consultant, Merrick. There is just a small error on one of their construction plans regarding, I believe, a roadway profile. Almost just a clerical error. Item number 2, however, is more significant, and it is a change from what is provided in the resolution that was included in the packet. The applicant needs to furnish a satisfactory development improvements agreement that meets our town code as it was amended in April of this year. And as well, the amount of the performance guarantee in this DIA should be 120% of the opinion of probable cost for the public infrastructure improvements to be built with this development. And that amount is just below $3 million. So staff feels confident that we can work through this with the applicant. The final plat and other documents cannot be recorded until this agreement is also signed. But providing this approval tonight by the board does not prevent us from working through this process to get the DIA written in a satisfactory manner. This concludes my presentation, and welcome to have any questions you may have.
Well done, thank you.
I have a
I'm-
question. Our attorney's memo stated something about the clerk wanted to bring it before the board rather than addressing it with the attorney. It's about the 2-year completion date on this development. Can we get any more information on that?
I think, Philip, it had more to do with the phasing plan requirement within the code. We just didn't see an adequate phasing plan submitted with the application. We saw an exhibit that showed 3 phases, but the code requires quite a bit more than that. It requires timing for recording of future plats, how the infrastructure is going to be dealt with at each phase. I mean, there's a whole list of items that's supposed to go into that phasing plan. And I think maybe that's what Clark wanted to talk to you guys directly about. There is a reference back to the SIA that was submitted that said satisfied that requirement, but there was no attachment to the SIA showing the detail that's required by the code for a phasing plan.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe Clark can speak to that.
So does this add-on help cover that also requirement for the development improvements agreement?
Well, I think what Garrett is speaking to up there is, we used to use subdivision improvement agreement template as the starting point for securing improvements that would be built in a new development. And then last April, that got updated to a development improvement agreement. It had some slight changes from the SIA. And I think the template that was used needs to be updated to that DIA template. So not necessarily, Katie, does it address that issue.
So
So
how do we handle this?
So for example, this was the comment in the first time that we reviewed this project. It was our first comment, in fact, on our legal memo. It says the submitted checklist says that a phasing plan is not applicable, but under code 19.3.230D, each phase should include anticipated recording dates of each plat, a development schedule for each phase, and a list of the public improvements necessary to fully support each phase in the event subsequent phases are delayed or do not occur. The town also may condition a phasing plan on the submission of an agreement to dedicate easements or rights of way. The phasing plan will also necessitate findings from the Planning Commission and Board of Trustees that the final plat phasing plan will not impede the orderly growth or public services and infrastructure necessary to efficiently serve each individual phase plat. So we didn't see any of that with the original submittal, and we didn't see it with the resubmittal either. We saw a depiction of 3 phases, but not that detail that I just described from the code.
So should that still be included as one of our conditions, or are we going to decide on that once we speak with the applicant?
Well, that would be my recommendation, that there be a phase plan, or maybe an explanation from Clark why it's not necessary.
Okay, any other questions from the board before we have the applicant give a presentation? Lewis? No? Is Lewis still unmuted?
Yeah, I'm here. I guess I would like to see more detail on the lighting plan, because what's happened over in Hay Meadow is problematic. And there's been a dispute of whether or not the lighting there is dark sky compliant. I don't know if we should kick that down the road or not, but apparently it didn't get addressed properly. And I'd like to see more detail on how that's going to be structured before I would recommend approval for this.
Lewis, I would just refer back to my earlier point. At this point, we don't have architectural elevations for the proposed buildings or any details or specifications on proposed lighting on those buildings. Those would be provided at the time through the building permit process and be reviewed at that point.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but I think that that got missed, and I would like, some agreement from the developer that they're going to install dark sky compliant lighting in these units.
I don't think they have any other choice. Our code
Well,
mandates
Philip,
that we
apparently
have
they
dark
do.
sky compliant.
Apparently they do.
No, I don't think that's arguable. I mean, our code has dark sky compliance. They have to
Well,
meet those regulations.
okay.
Okay, anybody else before we move to the applicant? Okay, is it Layla or you? Both?
Hey, Layla, you there?
I am.
Layla?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Hi, Clark Lipscomb for the record with Grand Park. Layla, I'll let you go on your presentation, and then I can address Kent and Mr. Gregory after your presentation.
Perfect. And I've got some documents to address Kent's comments as well. Yeah. You can see my screen. You see my screen?
We do, thanks.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to keep this brief because Garrett did a great job kind of giving you all of the details around this particular proposal that we have in front of you. We have been working on this for a number of years now, and we're excited to kind of get this to the finish line. So the site that we're talking about, as you are well aware, is right here, 2W.1. This is just a prettier picture of it, really. So the site plan that you were talking about is 204 units. We do have two different types of buildings. One is a 24 unit building, which is building type 1, which is the one that you see here, kind of this charcoal color. And building type 2 is a 12 unit building, and these are the ones that you see in the beige color. I do think a couple things of note as it relates to the kind of how we laid out this site plan is, as you can kind of see, we were cognizant of our homeowners as in an effort to kind of try to provide some variety along Mountain Willow Drive to kind of pull those homes back a little bit from those existing homes and provide a nice buffer in an effort to really try to minimize the impacts of these units. These are 3-story buildings as of right now. And we do also have 1-story garages that you can kind of see here in this kind of pink color that are kind of scattered throughout the community and the neighborhood. Again, as Garrett said, we meet or exceed all of the development standards in code and in the PD, including parking, snow storage, setbacks, open space, all of those things as part of this development. In addition to that, we do have a clubhouse up here, kind of well, it's not, I guess, it's up in my drawing, but it's technically to the east of the community. We have a clubhouse that'll have some amenities, potentially an outdoor pool, spas, those types of things, as well as a little ski storage building for use by our residents. And really the rest of this really is these are the buildings, and we've got some rendering kind of on site just to kind of depict what they look like. I think the key to this is really how they fit within the fabric of that neighborhood there, and how they really fit well across. So this is a view from, as you can see here, from Old Victory Road. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, that's not true. That's a view from Highway 40. Another view. We're kind of looping our way around from the south.
That's Grand Park Drive.
Yep. So here we're along Old Victory Road, kind of along the side there. Now we're up further north, looking down, as you can see, from to the south, from Cousins Meadow. So these are the buildings, 3-story buildings. That's the 24 unit building. This is the clubhouse. So again, like I mentioned, we will have a clubhouse facility is included with this neighborhood. And then these are some of the amenities that we're talking about as part of this: pool, some outdoor seating, some fire pits, some spas, those types of things are what we're hoping to include as amenities for this particular neighborhood or community. And again, the ski storage lockers and potentially some little outdoor play areas included with this as well. So that's all I have for this. For right now, I'm keeping it simple. So if you have any questions, obviously Clark and I are available, and I can also address Kent's comments as well. Clark, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so those are 3-story buildings right now. This, as you guys might recall, was the HUD 221D4 free market apartment complex that we had teed up and spent a significant investment designing what you see up there now. And because that could not get through the process with the town, it got converted subsequently to a condominium project. The architecture is likely to change to some extent, given the buildings that you see in this imagery was for a free market apartment project, and they're a little bit different product parameters. Site plan we like a lot. I think we will do great on the architecture of the buildings, being that they're going to be for sale, and even when it's not for sale, I think our architecture is pretty decent. So I think all in all, it'll be a really nice project, and it's a good location for it. As for the phasing, I'm not sure what Kent is referencing, and I think that's where the issue has been, is the lack of clarity from him. We've done, to my knowledge, the same phasing mapping that we've done since I started here in 2004, I think. And we also provided it, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, Layla, we provided schedules with our subdivision improvement agreements for each phase. Is that correct?
Yes. However, in this instance, all of the infrastructure improvements are part of phase 1. They're kind of needed in order to start the project. So the reason that there isn't a phasing was not applicable is that all of the improvements required as part of the SIA were actually part of phase 1. So
right,
it's not phased.
Yeah. So these are basically, this is like an infill. So if you think about it, Mountain Willow Drive and American Willow Drive are built, and they have water sewer underneath them. And so you've got pretty minimal water and sewer connects. That's a 12-inch water main that's running through there. If I remember right. And it's a big sewer line. And if I'm correct, the primary work is done, and that was the concept, was the way these are integrated. You're doing, I think that's why there was a DIA discussion, was a development improvement agreement that would effectively provide a means for us to go put in all of the public infrastructure before the subdivision's recorded and to get it accepted, right? Layla, the water sewer, and then the parking areas are all private.
Correct.
So the roads and parking areas that are over the water sewer are private.
Right. And the probable estimate of cost from the engineer includes all of the infrastructure improvements required for this development. So hence, so that's kind of the basis of the one phase.
So while there's 3 phases of plats and 3 phases of buildings, which is how it would be platted and built, there's 1 phase of water and sewer infrastructure install.
Correct.
Correct, Layla?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I think that's where maybe there's some confusion, but I think we've used the same forms that are the town's forms and provided the same schedule formats that we've historically used. So I'm not sure exactly where the disconnect is regarding phasing and how that works. And as for the lighting, it's an architectural thing. The town code actually provides for downlit lighting, and the lighting can't light up adjacent properties to a certain extent. I just recently read the town code. So I think that's a moot point when it comes to subdivision approvals. You follow the town code and you follow the architecture.
Tiny, go.
What is
go.
Oh. Layla, you having dog problems?
Sorry. Yes, I'm having dog problems. I'm sorry. Turned off my video and didn't turn off my mute. So there you go. Sorry.
Good luck with that.
Hey, I got him out. We're okay. They're opening doors. I'm not sure how they do that.
She was telling me go. I don't know what she was telling me. So anyway, the lighting, that's a thing that gets done at architecture. Is done, the building officials look at it, planning looks at it. I mean, we've done similar, same lighting we've done through all of our neighborhoods. We've not had a problem. We have a neighbor right now that likes to leave their lights on 24/7. I actually think that's the predominant issue, but we're working to try to solve that. Regardless, I mean, I think good project, pretty happy with the layout. Might not have been my first choice had it been designed as condominiums from the get-go. But it was significantly, well, it was in this format when it was finished for the apartment deal. So you guys know now, since you're doing what it costs to design this stuff, but I think it will be great. And I do really like how it relates to the duplexes that are in there and the spacing that's between it. And I think it keeps a really nice kind of some green elements and nice open space along Mountain Willow and American Willow Drive. And I personally think the American Willow connection has been on our plans for a decent amount of time. And so I think making that go across is the right thing to do. And that'll happen in kind of subsequent future phases. Not required for the project, but we think it's a good thing ultimately to do. Yeah. Any questions for me?
Yeah, Clark, this is Lewis. Just a question. Does that mean I have your commitment to remediate the lighting on Hay Meadow?
Lewis, that's not a topic of this hearing. I'm happy to talk with you offline about it. And I've been coordinating with the town manager and other people pertaining to that.
Yeah, no, I've talked to you several times about it and nothing's happened. So, I would like for you to commit to having, dark sky compliant lighting in our neighborhood. Bottom line, that's it.
Yeah, that's that lighting that is there is downlit, Lewis, and meets the town code. That's the unfortunate thing. So we're dealing with it through our HOA documents because that's our best means to handle it. I'm not going to go trespass on somebody's private property and deal with something you don't like.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Comments?
I'm still not comfortable with whatever is going on between Clark and Kent. And I know in the past we've voted against our attorney, and I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, so thank you for that explanation. That's kind of the first I've heard of how this is going to play out, that essentially the infrastructure over the 3 phases is going to be completed at the outset. Is that correct?
Well, the public infrastructure, which is what's
Well,
part of the improvement
I think the
agreements.
intent of the phasing provision under the code is when you have a phased project, the town wants to provide so that there's adequate security and assurances that each phase will be serviced by infrastructure. So that's the purpose of a phasing program or a phasing plan. Now, my objection was clear. It's been out there since July of 2022. I just haven't heard that explanation until tonight.
So if we continue to leave it as a condition, it sounds like you guys could work it out. And it
I think
doesn't really
so.
have to involve the board.
I think
Because
so.
it really is a lack of communication there.
Or not understand, it's all like been done. Like the roads are in,
Right.
water and sewers in. So
Well, there's more water sewer to go in.
Yeah, right.
Okay, yeah. So they can
That's
work
what's
out
in
those
phase 1
details.
is all the water sewer that's in I think the DIA that was referenced. And the water sewer and storm, by the way, there's a combined storm is what held this up. The drainage. That's what took so long to work out with Merrick and Tony Crumpin. And that all gets done on the front end, 100%, which is typically what I do anyway, but that's your detention facility, stormwater, et cetera. That's all in the phasing we submitted. So what won't be done on phase 1 are those private drives, private parking areas, et cetera, because you typically do those after you build the buildings. Okay.
Great, thanks, Clark.
Mhm.
Does that satisfy you, Eileen?
Does it satisfy you, Kent?
I think it satisfies the intent of that code provision, yes.
Okay, any other
Okay.
questions, comments from the board?
So I guess I have a question for Ken. Should we keep that condition on that he addressed your concerns from September 18th, or is that mute?
He just did. Katie.
Okay, so that's a mute point now.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay,
Good.
anybody from the public? Let's start here in the house. Come on, raise your hands, everybody. No? Not here for this one, huh? Anybody online? Okay, when I say going once, going twice, gone, it means it's gonna be in there. So anybody else online? Raise your hand digitally right now.
Mhm.
Okay, no, nothing from the public, the board, what do you want to do?
Well, I've got some comments. Thank you for exceeding your parking requirements. Thank you for exceeding your open space requirements.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And for planning the extension of, is it American Willow that's gonna go over to Rendezvous Road?
Yep.
We've needed that connector road for a long time.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it'll be a good connection. Yeah, hopefully we can get that figured out soon.
Yeah, and of course, there's always dust and you're gonna have a lot of neighbors over there, so I'm sure that you'll be doing what you can to help mitigate that
Yeah.
dust if we live in dust country.
Well, the nice thing, this is a isolated construction site that's just our guys, unlike, I know the
Might
public
help.
road that
Yeah.
well, it's a road that we allow the public to use that I know is a sore subject with
Yeah.
you, so.
Anyway,
In any case, but yes, we will, we will
Great.
handle our own
Thank you.
construction dust.
okay, good.
Um,
All right.
Anybody else?
I really like the setbacks from the Mountain Willow side. I thought that was a really good touch.
Yeah, great, thanks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2023-1102, approving final plats and final plan development plan for Alpenglow Planning Area 2W2.
Second.
Sorry, taking a drink there. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay,
One, is that a yay or a nay?
nay.
Nay, okay.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next is the Downtown Development Formation and Fiscal Analysis by Troy Bernberg.
Good evening. Give me a moment here to share my screen.
Just to provide a quick introduction and context, continuing our discussion from last two weeks ago at the last board meeting regarding the possible Downtown Development Authority formation. In addition to Bill Schrum from Downtown Colorado Inc., we have also been working with Troy Bernberg. He's the managing director of public finance at Northland Securities, and he's helping provide some information around some of the fiscal analysis to go with the possible downtown development district.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and hospitality this evening. I'm going to start with a quick introduction and then jump right into it. I know you've had a long agenda, so I'll try to be as diligent with my time as possible. I've been, as Sarah said, I'm managing director for Northland Public Finance. That's a short way of saying I've been doing this for a long time, about 20 years, a lot of it on the West Slope. So I've had the pleasure of being in these meetings for many, many years. About 10, 12 years ago, I did start some volunteer work, which is a little unusual in my profession, but around downtown corridors and communities. So I started volunteering with Downtown Colorado Incorporated, going into towns and communities in their central business districts on technical assistance teams to try and figure out how to revitalize those corridors. That has actually led me to become a board member of that nonprofit organization. And so this is an area that I'm particularly passionate about in public finance. I've basically done almost everything you could do under public finance. I have specialized in development activity in the last 5 to 8 years of my career. I represent 3 of the newest DDAs formed in the state of Colorado. There are now 20 DDAs in the state, and I represent 3 of them all they're all within 3 years old. So they're still toddlers growing up, as I like to say, and it's a lot of fun guiding those folks through it. I know some of this has been talked about in the past, but I'll highlight it. I think DDAs are fantastic mechanisms for communities like yours. They are relatively easy to form. It's a small investment, I like to say, to control your own destiny and future. Development comes and goes. This really allows you to help shape that and what that looks like for your downtown corridor. They're also very optional. That means they have a lot of options. DDAs can be used as a tool in many different ways. You can collect tax increment and pay as you go for projects and programming. You can use redevelopment and reimbursement agreements. If you so choose, you can assess a mill levy, and you can ask for bonded debt authorization. There are very few kind of jurisdictions under Colorado statute that can allow you to do all those things. For what it's worth, the 3 new DDA clients that I represent, only one of them has a mill levy. The other 2 are operating and programming on tax increment alone. For me, DDAs are really unique in that there's a stakeholder partnership with their municipality. It's their municipality that forms them by ordinance. Of course, it's subject to voter approval thereafter. But what I've realized is there's a really unique relationship between a municipality and its DDA. And I think that's good for a variety of reasons. One of them being oversight. Certainly a plan of development is a document that you would pursue should you decide to move forward with this venture. But as a board of trustees, you get to approve their annual budget. And if they do decide to do debt, and if they're authorized to do so, you would be issuing that debt with them being the borrower. That's oversight you don't really get with an urban renewal authority. And so I think it makes a great team partnership between DDAs and municipalities that you don't necessarily get with other tools in this toolbox. It's also subject to Tabor. So for whatever that's worth, we all know what Tabor is. Some of us like it, some of us don't. I'm mixed. But it's done what it's supposed to do. And so I think a lot of times the comfort of that being subject to Tabor is something that does provide comfort to people that are forming it. So talking about boundaries, let's move to my slide here. Talking about boundaries, I don't want to reiterate too much of what's been discussed and talked about. But again, going into how DDAs, the nature of them, and why I think they're a really ideal tool is they're more focused in terms of boundaries, okay? So they're generally or have to be around a business or city center corridor, town center corridor. So by that means, you're focusing the efforts of a DDA in that area. Everything that's collected in that area has to be spent in that area. When you're looking at the boundaries of the map, you want to identify areas that would or can be developed. You want to identify property owners that may be willing to be engaged sellers. You want to look at properties that have infrastructure or that have infrastructure very close to where they are. The variables that I talk about on the bottom of this slide, I think are just those. For me, these are things that every project or development deals with. And for me, if there's careful and prudent planning, I don't really believe these are risks at all. I believe that these are things that can be accommodated with careful planning. And, despite all the variables listed up there, economic being a big one, we all know what's happening with interest rates, what's happening with the Fed, what's happening with a recession or a soft landing. Thankfully, some of that gets crowded out on a local level, because even though activity is slowed in the state overall, there's still a great deal of many projects getting done despite some of these outside forces. And I really share this to say, hey, this is kind of the stuff that I look at on a daily basis for my clients. And it's just to kind of make you aware that DDAs, the plans will continue to evolve as time progresses. Okay, let me change slides real quick. Take an awkward sip of water. Okay, so in my preliminary analysis that's summarized on this slide, I really tried to isolate those variables as much as I could, right, in my modeling. And I would certainly share my modeling, but it's not really very pretty. It's just a bunch of numbers and rows and columns. But what I tried to do was use local comparables for my analysis. I really isolated these two potential projects in that I didn't deal with base versus increment. I just looked at these projects and what they could potentially generate in property tax increment. I am not assuming any sales tax increment, although that can be an option under your plan of development, so that down the road, should you choose to capture that, the plan of development would allow you to do that. You know, some of the assumptions that I made that will certainly change, as I just referenced a few minutes ago, start of construction, okay? Just real quickly illustratively, if a project starts next year, it gets finished with a certificate of occupancy in late 2005, you may not start collecting property taxes, and therefore increment, until 2026 or 2027. So there is typically a little waiting period, and that does require, again, careful planning. And that's what I've kind of specialized in with the 3 DDAs that I mentioned a moment ago. Ownership, I know that some of these projects will be deed restricted for purposes of this preliminary analysis. I did not assume deed restriction at this time. But again, that's for me what to expect. These inputs will consistently change as you progress through this process. But I think what's really special so far is that you've got engaged developers. You've got developers that are locally known, perhaps locally based. And in a lot of cases, I'm working with DDAs or URAs that are trying to procure or solicit developer interest. So for me, that really kind of puts you in a good position, and a DDA will kind of allow you to at least control to some extent what that development would look like within the boundaries of this proposed DDA. I also think that local developers or regional developers can be a little more sticky. They can be more long-term developers or investors, and those typically are more ideal candidates for projects, because ultimately, you know, you put out a timeline, I can guarantee you it's going to change a number of times, and having good locally invested developers is really important to success. And I've seen some of the planning efforts that you're doing, incentives, et cetera, those are all great things. I think the DDA can be a tool, again, with a relatively small investment that can really push you over in terms of controlling development in your own destiny. Assessment rates, you know, I will point out that I am assuming that Proposition HH will pass. And I'm only stating that as an assumption because it's a conservative one. I'm not here to say whether HH is good or bad or will pass or fail, but I thought it was a more conservative approach to assume those assessment rates. As we all know, that proposition will lower property assessment rates for all categories of property, create a couple of new subcategories of property. And so again, trying to isolate that as much as possible, that noise. And so I've assumed the lower rates that would be in place under HH. Okay, so looking at Clayton Court, I spoke to you a few weeks ago about my initial assumptions. It was based on some comparables from your neighbors to the south there, and 12 condo units, 6 commercial suites on the bottom floors. I think a mixed use development is a great way to generate TIF. Certainly turning around a property that's currently tax exempt and turning that into a paying property, whether it be commercial or residential, is another great way to capture new TIF. Excuse me. And so at this point, what I did was using the assessment rates under HH, assuming about a year and a half, maybe 2 years in one or two instances, construction cycle. What I did was I looked that out over the 30-year period. Okay. So DDAs can be around and capture increment for 30 years. So I went out and projected what that property or that development would produce in property taxes at the lower assessment rates. I think what's a really encouraging approach here is I didn't assume any growth in that valuation. So it's flatline. And I think that's quite conservative. But again, for me, that's a way to isolate some of those variables that I talked about earlier. And so, on a present value basis, over 30 years, Clayton Court could produce about $8 million in property tax on a present value basis. I used historical inflation for that present value for you finance geeks out there. So that's 3%. Some people might say that's too low. I would say that when you look at inflation over a long period of time, it has basically averaged out to about 3%. So again, I'm happy to change those inputs upon direction with you all. And I did change some of the variables. I think I might have been a little too liberal on the square foot number for the condos and maybe a little too conservative on the commercial footprint of that project. So I bumped up the commercial a little bit to the 200 square feet, $200 a square foot range, and I brought down the residential. The apartments and for sale townhomes in the Victoria Village proposed project, I was a little more conservative, again, with the potential that that project or portions of that project might be deed restricted. That will kind of bring down the valuations a little bit. And so with that in mind, I was a little more conservative on the square foot numbers for that project. But ultimately, using the development yield that I found on your website for the Victoria Village Affordable Housing Project, I assumed all the yields that were in that presentation that are on your website, and that can generate about $7.1 million of present value. That is, in one case, again, I was pretty conservative. I applied the multifamily assessment rate to this project over the 30 years. Present value is 7.1. So I try to be as conservative as I can. It's part of my job to underpromise and overdeliver when it comes to these projections. But as I note on the bottom of this slide, my pro forma for my other DDA clients, I'm probably in it once or twice a month on an ongoing basis. It turns out to be a really good risk management and planning tool for DDAs so that you can constantly gauge where you're at, what's happening economically, how can you input that into your model. And all this really does is help you plan and be more effective when a DDA is up and running. And so with that, the pro forma and model will continue to evolve. For example, if a developer pro forma were to come in to the town, part of my job would be to look that pro forma over and make sure that, it's fitting all the kind of assumptions and ranges of assumptions that I've seen over the course of my career. And with that, I'll conclude my statements and happy to answer any questions. That was a lot of information in a short amount of time, so happy to address any of your comments or questions.
So the land at Victoria Village, right now the town owns it? Does that make it tax exempt?
So
how's that going to play out?
One conversation that we're going to have with Victoria Village based on the pro forma is, if it can support property tax to some degree, great. If we need to look at some abatement for certain types of those buildings going out to make them more affordable, then we'll look at that option as well and make an informed decision as far as what that agreement looks like for each property. For the townhomes, we are looking at those being, again, we're should have a perform in our hands any week now.
Okay.
But the townhomes, for example, we're hoping that nothing goes market rate, but it will have some type of deed restriction on the townhomes so that they will still be paying property taxes that is in line with the restricted value of their homes, which is very similar to what you're seeing if you look up property taxes on the Trestle Drive in Winter Park for their single family home development. So we have some options there, some things to figure out. One big part of the discussion tonight, and something that we're going to continue to work on here in the pretty heavily in the next week or two, is looking at the fiscal analysis and kind of diving into these different areas. And the goal that we've talked about as far as if the board were to approve a 30-year bond measure for leveraging these property taxes for the tax increment financing based on what is to be built within these areas, we're looking at 15 to 20 million is what we've said for a goal over a 30-year period to support 15 to $20 million over a 30-year period to support things like land acquisition as needed for green space, parks, parking, and you could have public facilities in there, whatever the community wants there.
Troy, can you just rattle off those things we can spend that money on?
Sure.
We've seen it before, but just
You know,
think about it.
principally the easiest thing to say is anything of public benefit. It's one of the first words spoken under the DDA statute. The DDA statute does sit on its own under Colorado law. It's unique. And I think it can be interpreted in a number of different ways. I've seen some DDAs, one in downtown Denver. That's a completely different scenario where it was purely a transactional mechanism. You know, I think one of the great things about DDAs is that in providing that public benefit, you're, beautifying, improving, making your downtown corridor more attractive to come to. And I think what's important about the map boundaries that I forgot to mention, because I wanted to be timely with my comments. I talked about central business corridor, areas of identified development, which you have. But I think what I like about the boundaries shown on here, and these are proposed, not finalized, is that it includes, future potential opportunity. I think really the idea with DDAs and catalytic projects like Victoria Village or Clayton Court is that's supposed to create more exciting development around it. And so what I like about the boundaries is it captures the essence of the statute and what DDAs are supposed to do, but it provides you opportunity, if you would like down the road, to amend the plan of development, include additional properties. That's another nice thing about the flexible and optionality of DDAs is that that's a relatively easy step to do down the road. So you can capture other development down the road when it's coming. But primarily, to answer your question, it's public benefit. So infrastructure is a really good thing. But there's ways where safe sidewalks, water, sewer, public benefit. Absolutely.
Thank you.
1 second. Any other board? Okay, public in-house, raise your hand. Come up to the podium, Clark.
Hi, Clark Lipscomb for the record. First, I'd like to know what property tax mill levy are y'all proposing for the DDA, or are you that far along?
I'm not working with any assumptions that the DDA will be levying a mill levy.
We haven't.
Yeah.
It's just, he was just kind of showing that that's an option for DDA. It's not one that we've been considering.
And your net present value discount factor, what do you, what rate?
3%.
The 3% net present value? Okay. You think that's kind of low in today's environment?
Yes, and I made a reference to that,
Okay.
but when you look historically, I still think. that-
Troy, can we get you to use the mic?
Oh,
Like we have
Flip that one.
we have a portable
there you
one
go.
right
Yeah,
over
let's
here.
just-
Here, you want me to hand it?
Yeah, this
Nice
is all.
portable mic.
questions.
Oh. So the last question, if there's metropolitan districts already in place that are doing water, sewer, roads, how would the DDA benefit those areas? And how would an overlay benefit those areas if there's already a metropolitan district in place that's doing the public benefit improvements?
Well, metro districts, is this on? Okay, metro districts and DDAs can work together in a variety of capacities. I did not assume any metro district involvement in my preliminary analysis. Happy to conduct that as further due diligence. I think the important thing is that when it comes to reimbursement, redevelopment agreements, that really allows a lot of flexibility for the DDA to negotiate with other local jurisdictions about who's going to do what on a certain project. So a lot of times I've seen metro districts and DDAs work very well together.
But like if they're pre-existing, you still put the DDA over it. You just got to work something out with the metropolitan district first.
Correct.
Okay.
IGA, intergovernmental agreement.
Okay. That's all I had.
Great, thanks. Anybody else here in the house? Okay, no, Joe's itching to ask a question. We get Joe. Hand up for 20 minutes.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Good catch.
Hello,
Yeah, we
can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Joe.
Joe Landon, 62 Meadow Trail. Hey, just piggybacking on the gentleman's comments who just spoke. Yeah, so I thought what I heard was that you discounted the cash flows at an inflation rate and came up with an $8 million number. Is that correct? For your example, to come up with the $8 million of proceeds?
That's not necessarily proceeds. That's a revenue stream over a 30-year period.
Yeah. So I mean, what I would like to know is if you grew that revenue stream at a long-term inflation rate of 2% and discounted it at a market rate of what a TIF bond would sell for at 7%. And in this market, nothing's selling because the bond market has no money. But you discount that at 7%, what that number would be so that everybody could have in their mind. I don't know if that's 5 million or 4 million, but I know it's not 8. That would have been the correct analysis or comparison to provide the public with.
Okay, I appreciate your feedback. I'll take it into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else online? No? Okay, thank you, Troy.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I'm gonna ask Troy a quick question. We were talking earlier about HH. If it passes, when will that affect municipalities and what we're collecting and the state on property tax?
Next year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Going once.
Straggling.
Going twice.
Straggling questions. Anybody else?
Thank you.
To pop in?
Of course, happy to
Jump
do
in
it.
online?
Good.
Okay,
Good.
Thank you.
thanks, Troy. We're not,
Saved
oh,
our
wait,
staff
one
some
more,
time.
one more. No, I'm joking.
You got me there, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out, Troy. Okay, interesting.
Next is resolution 2023-1103, authorizing town manager to sign a letter of engagement with Butler Snow LLP for Downtown Development Authority. And Sarah C.
Thank you. Thank you, Troy. So as part of the DDA formation, we are asking for determination from the board regarding hiring of special counsel to assist in legal matters specifically related to formation of the DDA and the special election that would take place. The area of DDA law does tend to be rather specialized and somewhat nuanced. There's a lot of regulations specific to DDA elections and how they're run. This would include both a ballot measure for formation of a DDA as well as a ballot measure for debt authorization for bond possibilities for a downtown development authority. In talking with Downtown Colorado Inc. as well as with Troy, we have received the recommendation that it does go a long way to have specialized legal counsel for this to make sure that the formation is done correctly and everything is done properly. So we have talked with a couple different law firms that were recommended. We are looking at approval to sign on with Butler Snow LLP. They have extensive experience working with DDA elections, including working with Castle Rock, Denver, Eagle, Fort Collins, Glendale, Grand Junction, Longmont, Loveland, Mount Crested Butte, Netherland, Windsor, and Littleton. Their scope of services would include working with town staff, attending board meetings, informational meetings, helping with the ordinance, again, for both the formation of the DDA and the debt authorization, and making sure that everything with the election is in compliance with Colorado statutes. The alternative would be that we would not hire special legal counsel and we would work with our current town attorney, Kent Whitmer, to provide legal counsel on this and to help with the ordinance and the election matters. The staff recommendation is that we do sign a letter of engagement with Butler Snow LLP for matters related to formation of a DDA. They've come highly recommended, and it's also just been generally recommended that, again, due to some of the nuanced nature of the statutes and the specialized nature, that having previous experience and expertise in this area is invaluable. Whereas our current legal counsel, while very knowledgeable in many manners, would have to spend a lot of time just getting up to speed and making sure that everything was done properly. So happy to answer any questions about that.
Do we not need to put this out to an RFP or an RF? We don't have to?
Not for a services contract, no.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would just tag on to Sarah's comment. So we discussed this, and you know, my group could definitely figure it out, but we have no background in forming a DDA, so we'd be starting from ground zero. And it's very much like Metro District law. There's law firms that specialize in just Metro District. That's why we hired special counsel when we had the Metro District issue. And I would recommend that you hire special counsel in this circumstance too. Because I think at the end of the day, you'd probably end up spending more on me to get to the same point, because I just wouldn't be efficient.
Okay.
And we did get 2 proposals for this, just so you know.
Move to approve resolution 2023-1103, authorizing the manager to sign the letter of engagement with Butler Snow LLP downtown development.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thanks, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break.
Yes, please.
Are we live? We're waiting for a couple of our trustees to come back to their seats and then we'll get going.
Remove, turn off those lights. I think we have a perfect shot.
You got glare?
I got glare on. I think about every board meeting and I'm just gonna, so I actually made a note. 'Cause that's been, I think that's been a nice thing, right? Cause you don't have. Glare.
Right.
Yeah, be careful. Be careful after nine. Be careful. Don't call it on.
You're doing pretty good.
Call the police. November 7th. Reading it about?
Okay. Okay, we are officially back now. Next on the agenda is resolution 2023-1105, approving real estate contracts between Town of Fraser and Bison Real Estate Co. for the sale of certain properties. Kent's going to be leading this. I just wanted to clear up some untruths that were stated earlier tonight. One, I'm not a lame duck mayor. I can run again. I've chose not to run again, so I'm not a lame duck. And I actually voted against the land swap the last time. So this is not a mayor trying to push something through, because I believe 100% that the art center should be where it was originally designed for. It shouldn't be down by the river. So I just want to clear that up, and that's just my one opinion. I'm one of 7, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that I'm not trying to drive anything for my gain or for anybody else's gain. And so I wish Matt hadn't left. I wished he would have stuck around and got all the facts. So now we're at this stage. So Kent, if you want to
Sure.
take over.
So in your board packets, you had 3 appraisals and a couple of contracts. So maybe let me take each of those separately, and let's talk about the contracts first and what needs to happen or not happen tonight with regard to those, and then we can talk about the appraisals. So at the beginning of this process, when this concept first came to head, and Michael asked me to pursue it a little bit with the Bison folks, I thought the best way to maybe structure this is get some real estate contracts that Bison can see, you guys can see, to give the concept of the deal. And the concept of the deal is basically that conceivably the town would agree that each parcel is worth $450,000, and that there would be simultaneous closings of the 2 contracts for $450,000. Well, those contracts were done before the September meeting when we first talked about this. But we got to the September meeting and there was questions about, well, what is the real value of these lots? I mean, is it a fair trade? And so things got tabled at that point, and Michael and I discussed it, and we decided the best course of action would be for the town to get an appraisal on each lot, and to invite Bison to do what they wanted to do as far as appraisals too. So we engaged appraisers and got appraisals on each lot, and you've got those in your packet. And Bison did an appraisal on just the Clayton Court lot. So the way those contracts were set up is it contemplated that you folks could have approved them back in September. So they contemplated a period of time from September to November before voter approval, and gave all of the typical due diligence periods and abilities to each side during that period. Well, that didn't happen. But because of the timing, we had to, and the fact that one of the properties, the town-owned property, is a park property, and state statute requires that if the town sells or conveys a park property to a private entity, you have to go to and get voter approval before you do that. So we didn't approve the contracts, we tabled it, but we had to get that approval measure on the ballot by a certain date in September. So we had multiple moving parts, and we had to get, before we even got final consideration on the agreements, we had to get it on the ballot. So where does that leave you right now? It's on the ballot. It's going to be voted on. It's either going to be approved or not approved. So that's one component, but you also, with a real estate deal, have to have real estate contracts. So just the voters approving or disapproving isn't enough. You got to have a real estate contract too. You got to have two parties that have come to an agreement and signed on the dotted line. So tonight you've got two options. You could either approve or disapprove the contracts, but the vote's still going to go forward. So let's just kind of play out each scenario. Let's say you don't approve the contracts tonight. It's still going to be on the ballot, still going to go to a vote. If the vote is in favor, you as the trustees could thereafter decide to approve the contracts. I mean, in other words, you could not approve them tonight. The voters could say, yeah, we're okay with this concept, and vote in favor of it. And then you could come back here and approve the agreements after the fact. So that's an option. Of course, if the voters do not do a favorable thumbs up, then the deal's dead, no matter what, because they have to approve the sale of the park property, and they have to approve it on the basis that it's an equal trade, 450,000 for 450,000. I mean, that's what they're voting. If you approve the contracts tonight, still needs to go to vote of the voters. If the vote is unfavorable, again, the deal's dead, even though you have approved the agreements. And the agreements are structured so they're contingent on voter approval. So nothing happens unless there's voter approval. If the vote is favorable, then, and you've approved the contract, then you got a deal according to the terms of the contract. The terms of the contract say you have the right to get an appraisal on the property if you want, which you've already done. So do they. It says if the appraisal comes back on the property you're purchasing less than the property you're selling, you can object. And if you object, that throws it back into Bison's court. They have the ability then at that point to make up the difference and still do the deal, or to walk from the deal. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on how things are going to proceed forward? So
Yeah,
yeah,
Candace Lewis. So why are we even considering it now before the voters weigh in on this? I mean, why don't we wait until the vote is counted before we bring this before the board?
yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable position, Lewis. And that's what you guys need to discuss tonight and decide.
So I can add a little bit to that. We were working to get an appraisal as soon as the ballot language was approved, which is what we did. We were hoping to have that in time for October, the second meeting in October, but we didn't get the appraisals till, I don't know, that day or the day after, I think.
Yeah.
So we weren't able to have the board meeting then. We're having the meeting now. The whole point of this is to inform the board, to get input, to get different perspectives, to see if this is something the community wants. And be able to make an informed decision at the trustee level, either tonight or if you decide to move this after the vote. And also for the public, to keep the public informed. There's been some comments that the public has not been adequately informed about this. We have limitations from a statutory perspective that limits what we can advocate for or not. We did publish a picture showing which parcels were in question and where the current town-owned parcel is that's next to the barn lot, with the ballot language there. And pro cons with that as well that we've pushed out. So we're making every attempt to inform the public of what this is. I know there's a lot of questions still, and that's part of the purpose of tonight, to see if we can have some clarity with, you know, the trustees, with the residents of Fraser, with the different stakeholders involved, all together to make an informed decision. So that's the purpose of tonight. That was my intent for this purpose tonight. And if the board decides to make a decision on the agreement tonight, okay. If they want to push this off to see what the voter turnout looks like after this meeting tonight, that's great too. I think for my job as town manager to keep the public informed on what decisions they're making that have a Fraser ballot initiative on it, I see the importance and my responsibility to try to inform the public as much as possible. We wanted to have this meeting earlier in October, but we did not have the appraisals in hand. So we are now having this meeting with the appraisals in hand. There's a disparity between the two appraisals for the Clayton Court lot. That's, I think everyone's aware of. And that's part of the discussion tonight, is to make an informed decision, or at least have a conversation so that people have hopefully a little more clarity on what is being asked by the voter base for ballot initiative with 2B. Is that correct, Kent?
I can't remember what number it is.
2B.
So do we need to have, our appraisal came in at 335,000 for Clayton Court. Bison's came in at 790,000. That's about over twice. Do we need to have another appraisal done?
Well, seeing how I've worked in the industry, the problem with appraisals is if they're not appraising exactly the same information, you're going to get multiple values for each property. And what I mean by that is, if an appraiser goes and looks at a property as it sits today, it doesn't have the sewer and water run to the property, and then we go look at the other property, and all you got to do is hook into the taps. One property is going to be worth a lot more than the other.
Right.
So if I take the piece that we have, if it had water and sewer, curb and gutter all to it, that property would gain somewhere between 30 and 50% of its value.
Right.
Because I don't have to put in that, I don't have to pay.
So Clayton Court does not have water and sewer.
Right, so if you appraise it as it sits today, you're gonna come up with a much lower number. If you go and do the appraisal and know that the road and the water and sewer lines are coming in, you're gonna give that piece of land more money. You're gonna get more value. Because it's what it's gonna be in the future versus what it is today. And so depending on how the appraisers were told what's gonna be brought in, what's gonna be there, and what the developer's paying for, not paying for, will change the appraiser's value. And it's the same way on a house. You go to a house, and if the house isn't painted on the inside, the appraiser's gonna give a much lower value, even though it doesn't need to be painted to be lived in.
So since you're a professional and you're in this business, what do you think? Do you think it really does wash out for both to be 450?
As a professional, I don't understand why the Bison boys would trade the lot. Their lot is far better than what we have.
Okay.
I have that, in all honesty, I cannot figure out why the Bisons would, Greg and Kevin would agree to swap them off. The one on the river, I could sell their units for, they do 3-bedroom units, probably 800 to $1.2 million each. And in town, I might get 650 to 800 at best.
Good. Thank you.
Well, I haven't been interior design yet in the area.
Yeah, I don't.
They will, with the mural park, it is a bigger lot, so they'd add an extra unit.
Right, fair enough. Right.
So,
I can give you some insight on why the appraiser did what he did for us. When I got the appraisals, I thought the same thing. I mean, why is there such a big difference? So I spoke with Kelly, our appraiser, and I said, why is there such a big difference? And here's kind of a summary of his comments. He said the main thing that he hung his hat on was the fact that last June Bison bought the property for 325. And so he was struggling with, how do I justify the difference between that and where I came out. He also did say that he appraises as is. So without the infrastructure, he didn't take that into consideration. I said, well, the infrastructure is going in. What would you say that would increase the value by? And he said, in his opinion, 20%, which would get you up to 402. Okay. He didn't agree with the other appraisers' comps, except for one. He thought the other appraisers' comps were, because they were for single family, that commercial comp should have been used. And so he disagreed with those comps there. He said he did take into account the river, but because there's a city right-of-way between the property and the river, he didn't attribute that much value. And one of his comps was on the river that was very similar in value. And then last thing he said was the recent change in zoning was kind of splitting hairs, didn't really add a lot to value. So I guess the bottom line is if he would have taken into account the infrastructure that's going to go in, he probably would have landed around that 402 area.
Yeah, and like I said, it's all opinion.
Yeah.
And Kelly's a very good appraiser. Both of the appraisers, we use them all the time. So they're both knowledgeable of him. They're both good at what they do.
Let's say how come Bison's appraisal, how come their comps are 1.15 miles away, another 2.48, another 1.46? Why did they go so far away from the actual district?
Kelly commented on that too.
Okay.
Go for it.
So personally, this has been very useful, but I don't think we should vote on it tonight. I think we need to just see how the election goes, and then it can come back to us the next meeting. And if
I agree, but I'd like to hear from the public.
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah, the public here, they can.
I also want to know what happens. They say yes. I mean, whose appraisal are we using? Does Bison have to pay us the difference, or how does that work?
Well, you mean if the voters said yes?
Yeah.
Then the voters would bless that it would be an equal trade. That the voters would essentially be saying, we agree each property is worth $450,000. But that doesn't speak to the real estate contract that the town would enter into. That would just mean that the real estate contract would have to be closed consistent with that, which is how it's set up, which gives you the ability to just accept the voter's perception and close as is, or to say, well, I've got this appraisal and there's this gap. You need to make up the difference or we don't close. And then the ball would be in their court.
So the appraisals are supplemental information to this agreement. They're informational documents. There's no requirement to follow an appraisal. So yeah, and that's, I'm glad too that, Bison was willing to provide theirs as well for us to put into the packet. So we have all that information. So it's supplemental information for the public and for the trustees.
And to your question, Brian, a lot of times you'll see appraisers or brokers go way out of their way looking for properties that match more similarly. So they have river access, the same size, same development plan. And if they're not in the town, you have to go out of the town to find it. So that's why you'll see some appraisers can find everything in. Like Kelly knows the area really well. He can find properties and say, okay, I know this sold for this. And like the One Love property that sold, he probably use that as a comp, right? Say, okay, this one matches, but it doesn't have the river, but it had all the infrastructure.
But it didn't.
Well,
I mean, like Bridger Trace is a house. It's just a house.
Right.
So why would you even consider that?
I can't read his mind, but I can tell you that's appraisers go out looking to see if they see a property, they look at the whole market, they try to figure out what that value is, and then their job is to go out and find properties that support their belief. Does that sound better?
Yeah, makes a little sense. I still, of all the possible places that you could look, like why would you choose? I mean, this one, 134 County Road 835. It's like in a residential. It's on Brookie Drive. It's a residential land
I'm
piece.
with you.
Like,
I don't understand all their stuff either, but
I mean, it's
they have
it
their
seems yeah.
Okay, so let's open it up to the public for comments. So let's start. Let's do it the other way this time. Let's do online first. So anybody online? Raise your hand digitally. Kevin R is the first up.
Hey everyone, Kevin Rifkin, 88 Alderbrook.
Sorry, Kevin. Can you hold off? It's gonna be the same rules. You're gonna only get, can you reset his 3 minutes, please? You're only gonna get 3 minutes. You can't bank your time. You can't give your time to anybody else, and you can't come back. So you get one shot at this and you're moving on. So, okay, Kevin, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Kevin Rifkin, 88 Alderbrook. Apologies for not being there in person. I'm fighting off some kind of sickness, so I'll be very quick. Brian, to your point on the appraisal, the one thing, and we didn't really have much communication with the appraiser, but I'm looking at it. Our appraiser went out and found lots that she thought had similar characteristics, that you could build essentially homes on rivers or in good viewshed areas. She took into account too that you could build up to 6 homes on this lot, and some commercial. Appraisals are an art, not a science by any means, and that part's tough. What I mentioned at the last meeting is this doesn't really benefit us either way. We're kind of just devoting our time, resources, and money not to bolster our return, but to work with the town to make downtown better. My goal is in 5 years is to bring my kids to Fraser and go downtown and have them see something that we're all proud of. And that's why we thought imagining a park or an art center or something on the river would be really cool. What we found is the concerns were around parking, and the town not actually doing anything once the assemblage comes in. So we worked with some stakeholders and we created a little site plan that I'm sure Greg will hand out or talk about that actually increases parking on the site, the mural park site. And we're passionate about that. I think it's a benefit for everyone, and is expensive for us, but we want to do it. So it brings back to the root cause of the pushback, which I think is that the town won't do anything with the deal and nothing will happen on Clayton. And so a few years ago, I probably would have agreed with that concern and we wouldn't have done that. But I do think with the folks in front of us, the new staff, and what's been accomplished recently, I have a lot of faith that this group can get things done, and we can kind of work together to get things done. But that brings up my question. I'm kind of talking to Greg on the side on, hey, should we even move forward with this? And we have put all this time and effort into it? And that being said, I mean, my question to the staff and the board is, do you guys think you can get something done on Clayton if we swap this? Do you have the right people, skills to start this chain reaction? Even if it's just a proper park in the assemblage. Because if we do this, will we have something that we can bring people in 5 years and show them? And if you're confident in that, I 100% support this and think we should do it. And if the board shares this confidence, let's do it. If there isn't the confidence, then I think we should just let the mural park that is currently remain a parking lot and snow storage. So thanks for everyone's time.
Thanks, Kevin. Anybody else online? Nope. Everybody's attitude. Nobody? Okay, in the house, raise your hand. I'll address you. Autumn, come on up.
Thanks. Before I start, I wanted to compliment the town of Fraser for this room, this friendly setup. you guys are like on this level, we're close together. I speak at other town meetings and it's a little more intimidating. So I like this. This is good.
And then if you just your name and where you,
Oh, yeah,
if
yeah.
you live in the town.
Yep,
of Fraser.
yep. My name is Autumn Bishop. I'm a downtown Fraser business and property owner. My husband and I own a property at 301 Eastham Avenue. It's a historic property that housed military personnel in charge of POWs. 4 years ago, we opened a gift shop in the property. We won Best of Grand Gift Shop 2 years in a row, and this year we won finalists. I feel certain all of the construction and not having the mural fest on our side of 40 contributed to us not winning for the 3rd consecutive year. And we also came in finalists for all of Grand County in customer service this year. I'm strongly opposed to this land swap. I do not feel the impact on existing businesses has been well thought through, nor has this been run through any key stakeholder channels for input. I'm thinking in particular of like EDAC. Communities that thrive over the long run are built on solid, organic, wide and deep bonds made up over years of both financial and human investment. This creates synergy bridging the interests of past, present, and future concerns. These strong bonds do currently exist, creating a solid base to build upon and should not be taken for granted. From the time we invested in downtown Fraser, I have seen how and why this occurs and how deeply these ties run. I think of Katie's Burritos early each morning on the street corner during COVID, the space she donates to Tame Wellness. I think of the porch shopping we had at our gift shop during the shutdown and the customers sending us tips through their no contact online purchases with notes of encouragement saying, hang in there, we want you and we need you to survive. I think of Camber right there on 40, making the very most of their unique and constrained footprint. They didn't wait for the perfect cider conditions to build a really great brewery. Then I think of the energy, infusion, and excitement created by Fraser Valley Distilling, and then learning about how a family had chosen to make such a huge investment in our little downtown. What an incredible facility down to the smallest detail. What community-driven folks that you quickly become first name with as they advocate and promote your business while building and working on their own. I know Barry and Debbie won't tell you this, but I am more than happy to share how charitable they are and how they embody true citizenship quietly and without fanfare far beyond their business endeavors. To my mind, they have earned the title of a major stakeholder and their input should carry a lot of weight with us all. All of your existing downtown businesses have put it all on the line, investing thousands, hundreds of thousands, and in the case of the distillery, millions, banking on a place we all love. In addition, you have people like me committed to my employees in the long run, weathering a summer of feeling suddenly invisible as a business and sticking in there due to being a passion. Okay, sorry. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Autumn. Anybody else in the house? Greg?
I'm Greg Beckler. I'm with Bison Investments. I have just some things to hand out if that's acceptable.
Yep.
Thank you all for hearing this. Like Kevin Rifkin's my partner said, there's not a big financial difference for us. Really, it's 4 townhomes and some small retail on the river or 5 townhomes in town. I didn't speak with Autumn before this, but I had spoken with Barry and other people, and I know our project and the construction has been not the best thing for someone who has a business right next to it. It is something we're cognizant about. Should this go forward, we have an agreement with a neighboring landowner to store all of our materials offsite and have our officing offsite. Should the deal go through, we would commit to do the site work first, since the site kind of allows us to attack it from 2 other sides and build. I just drew up 2 site plans that we were kind of proposing just because I know people don't know what we would want to do. So I thought that might be helpful, but I just listened to people's concerns. Downtown, there's a parking concern. So we had 1 site plan, 5 townhomes with 2 car garages in the back and 20 public parking spaces. And then another site plan, some people voiced that losing the park was much more important. So we reduced the parking spaces, added a park. I have a vested interest in downtown in general. So I personally want to see our new retail tenant, Simple Coffee, who's in here tonight, and the Birdie Lounge succeed. I know as frustrating as construction is, they're super excited of getting those spaces, and not having those spaces, nothing like Birdie Lounge could really happen in downtown Fraser. Just with the clearance and size and everything that they need. So I know it's not what people like. It's nothing fun about a construction site, but I do think there are benefits from it. And really, when it comes to valuing the two lots, it's a tricky thing. I know what our lot is worth to me. I know I could sell it for a hell of a lot more than 450,000. We recently purchased a lot, 2 townhomes, and we're selling it for over 300, much more later on. It's all about what you plan to do, what the vision is. So to me, that lot is probably not worth 790, but I would say it's worth high 600s, and I know I could sell it for that. So again, the appraisals, it's really who you're asking, is the riverfront lot more important to the town because it gives you the assemblage, it gives you the opportunities on a big lot.
10 seconds.
That was what was told to us. So we said, okay, what's important to us is building a number of units and parking and infrastructure for the town. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Anybody else in house?
My name is Barry Young. I live in the town of Fraser and own a business in the town of Fraser. Mayor Vanderbilt, 2 weeks ago, a resident stood up and thanked you for your years of service and called out 2 particular things he was most proud of. One was the creation of the Mural Festival, which has been an unmitigated success. And the other was the creation of the Mural Park, which I think has been an incredible gift to our town. During COVID, murals were spread all over town, but the Mural Park was the epicenter of it. And hundreds of people walked all around downtown. And it was just a wonderful thing. Later on, I came to this group and asked you all to create a Friday festival. And you did that. And the first one was so successful that it was a parking nightmare. That's how good it was. Hundreds of people showed up. Then a massive thunderstorm came in. They all sought shelter, and then they all came back. Hundreds of people ate and drank, bought from the vendors. This park is just a treasure to our town. During COVID, families would walk around town and buy takeout food and beverages and bring it to the mural park so they could eat and drink safely. The construction has slowed down the use, but it is still used every day. There's not a person in this town that sees the use of the mural park more than me. So I'm there almost every single day right now, walking back and forth to my 2 buildings. And I see families of construction workers come in and have lunch with the construction workers. This park brings people together and has so much more to offer. Now the construction's almost over. There's so much we could do with this park. Now, you mentioned you're still in favor of having the art center there. If that happens, that's public purpose, but this park was created for public purpose. I'd like to mention one of the things I've tuned into planning commission meetings, and it's clear that the town wants density. We're going to have all over downtown 45-foot buildings, maybe 55 if you approve that. This mural park is an oasis of open space that we will cherish if our town has all these tall buildings. Michael explained to me that under Colorado law, you have to get voter approval. And I've realized that's because a park is just part of the public trust. And I think a park should only be sold to a developer if it's under the most extreme of conditions. And I really don't think this applies. I'm out of time, but I'm going to say this today. I agree with what Autumn says, and I'm afraid if this goes through and 6 45-foot buildings are built back there, it is going to unleash unintended consequences that I'm afraid we all may regret someday. Thank you.
Awesome.
That was good timing.
Paula?
Hi, I'm Paula Stewart. I live in Fraser. I wanted to say, basically 2 things. I live in Rendezvous, and ironically, my husband and I almost bought 87 Bridger's Trace before we bought where I now live. And it's a residential lot, to Brian's point. It has absolutely no commercial zoning, and it should not have been used. So if you're going to use appraisals, I would recommend that they be the ones that get ordered through Kelly. The other thing is, as far as the park is concerned, I asked for the information from Sarah Wick, and she was kind enough to send it to me, that there was a grant for $96,000 that was granted by CDOT to the town of Fraser in July of 2021. And some $78,000 was spent on the park. And another $50,000 grant was given by Grand County for the statue that was erected there. And what I would ask you to consider is that in this proposed swap, where is the money going to come from to build another park? Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Anybody else here?
Hi, Tony Eason, 53 Trails Crossing, Fraser. I just kind of, I mean, you heard what I said before, and obviously this is part of it, that one of the first or second moves, I mean, there's some development obviously going on currently, is to remove a park. Just the thought of it. I Googled, I put in 10 different permutations of, and finally came up with, selling public land. And when you look at that, because it doesn't exist otherwise, it just doesn't happen, or rarely happens. And where it does happen, it is a mess. And it's because the public, when they find out what's going on and you're selling a park, there's usually an uproar around it. So and again, I don't begrudge the development there. I think developing this whole area is a very good idea, but it's when you're starting with removing a public park, and that's one of the first steps or second steps or third steps, when there's going to be a lot more over the course of the next few years. It's a bad vibe. And hearing about all the confusion and the different numbers on the appraisals, I think it should be used as a centerpiece for the development down there. You're going to have a lot of density and a lot of height, and I think people are going to be craving open space. Outside of that, if you can't do that, replace it with something equivalent that gives people who can just walk and get to it very easily. Thank you.
Thanks. Nicole?
Hi, my name is Nicole. I live in Fraser, off of Byers Avenue. And I am on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. And I have worked for the distillery since they opened in December of 2018. First, I would like to speak on behalf of my EDAC membership. I was kind of saddened to know that we were not addressed on any of this, and it seemed a little weird, seeing as we are definitely trying to help the downtown with its economic development. And this is a pretty big deal, taking a park away to build housing that most likely isn't affordable for many locals. It'll probably become second homeowners that don't necessarily occupy it all the time. Secondly, I'd like to address the fact that I work at Fraser Valley Distilling, and this past year with the construction has been definitely noticed in the amount of people we've seen in on a day-to-day basis. It has affected wages, which directly affects businesses. So I can speak to Autumn and Barry's points. We have many people that come in from Fishers that work there, and they say they're down as well. It's affected a lot of people, and that's just time and money we can't get back. Thirdly, I'd just like to say, as a board, you guys want open space. This is a park that's already developed, has been dedicated as a mural park, and I think that's a great use of space. Why would we take that away and try and start again? Consistency is key. So thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Matt?
Oh, Matt Barlow again, from across the street. I apologize for speaking out of turn and not addressing the issues I addressed earlier at this stage of the meeting. I now understand the procedure and will bring those up, and apologize to you for using the incorrect term for the end of your run. So just living across the street, it's more convenient for me to watch from my couch, but I don't have the Zoom feature. So I'm just here back to let you know that everything y'all say is important to me, and watching from Zoom, I can bookmark it and refer to it later and snip it, and I do pay attention, and I am here. So
I was hoping you'd We're listening because.
No, on the big street, it's much better. So.
That's nice.
Okay. Okay, anybody else in the house? Okay,
I want to table this until after. the
I do
election.
too. That's your motion?
That's my motion to table this.
Well, before we go to
till after the election.
my concern is the town approached Greg and Kevin, the Bison boys, as we call them. They the town approached them because we own the lot right behind the lot we're trading. And the mural park, just so everybody's clear, is a placeholder. That's all it was meant to be, is a placeholder until the town had enough money to develop another building there, being an art building was the plan, with residents there for the artists to be able to live in. So everybody keeps talking about this being vacant land and being a park for the next 50 years. That is not the plan for that spot. That plan will be a building. Question is, what building will it be? Now, I've lived in this town and I live on Eastham. As a matter of fact, I live right across the street from the mural park. And I live right across the street from the distillery. I like both the businesses. I like the park. However, looking at it and going out there, and I recommend all the locals do this, whoever's going to vote, go stand on both pieces of property. Go stand in the parking lot, go stand by the red building back there and take a look and tell me, where would you rather have your iconic art center, in the middle of town or on the river, on the Fraser River? My guess is everybody will want it on the Fraser River, and that spot we can develop over time. We can start with the mural park and work all the way up to a fabulous center that Mayor Phillip and his husband Eric put together with Steve, right? They came up with this great
Dow.
design.
Dow.
It wasn't me and Eric.
No, right,
There was
but-
a lot of people involved.
But you've inspired people to come up with more art stuff, is what I'm trying to say. So
You're inspirational.
take a look at that. Go look at the two pieces of property. A short time view is what's going to happen to the businesses next door. And yes, do I want all the businesses to survive? I do. A short look is what is happening today. A long-term look is what is going to be used and how is that art center going to bring business to the town in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. That's all I ask you to do, is take a better look at the two pieces of property and think about where you want your art center.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I certainly appreciate your comments and everyone's comments, to be honest, and I like how involved everyone is. But yeah, the mural park is going to be a building someday, one way or another. If we do this land swap, it gives us more space to create a better, more iconic art center, but we won't fill that whole space. We won't fill both lots. There'll still be a park. There'll be open space around it. We can move the mural park there. That's my vision of this area. So it gives you some perspective. You can stand back and enjoy this gorgeous building, but then you can also, we can put park benches in, we can make the mural park right next to this great building. So I don't think we're losing the mural park. I think we're just moving it 2 blocks away.
Anything else from the town board? Okay, yeah, I'm getting there. You've got a motion. Is there a second? So you can't speak from the audience. So what's that?
Possible for us to comment.
No, I can't do that because I'll get sued. So seriously, we've been threatened that I allow people to go back and forth and I just can't do it because we can get sued. As the liability for the town is too great to allow that. So I'm sorry, but unfortunately not. Is there a second?
The table.
The table?
Vote. I second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
I'll abstain.
Abstain?
Just no vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, see how
Did
it all
you get that?
washes out.
Okay. We do appreciate all the public coming. You guys have no idea. For years, there was never public in the audience, and it's nice to have public come in and hear from the public. So,
And a lot of good feedback.
yeah, great feedback.
A lot of-
Next is updates. Looks like Antoinette's
You
on
want to
there.
do the donor advised fund committee person? real quickly?
Oh, did I skip that?
Yeah, missed that. That was fast. Resolution 2023-11, right at the very top.
Okay, yeah. Thought it was part of the art. So let's do resolution 2023-1104, appointment to Fraser Donor Advised Funds Committee. I will not be volunteering for that.
I will volunteer for it.
So the board, passed resolution 0908, allowing the town of Fraser fund, the donor advised fund of the Grand Foundation agreement. So this is where the town will allow the Ground Foundation to administer, the town's advised funds. And the board will make the ultimate decision on that. So we committed that we will have 2 trustees on this committee, as well as we can also have the town manager and the finance director should the town manager choose that. But we do need to appoint 2 trustees to this committee. The funds are currently actively being sought, and people are applying for those funds.
I'll volunteer too. So we have 2 so far. Does anybody else want to volunteer?
Well, all we need is 2.
I know, I'm just, if there's 3, we would vote.
Well, if you make
But then it's a
3,
meeting.
then it's a public meeting, so please
No,
keep that
we
in mind.
vote on 2.
You vote on 2. That's, yeah.
Yeah, so like, is there anybody, nobody else wants? Just the 2 of you? Yeah, Eileen.
I was gonna,
Well then, go ahead. We can vote.
okay.
Eileen's in. Louis, you want to be in?
I'll pass. Thank you.
Okay, so 3. So if we can get voting.
So Eileen, you can do it if you really want to. I've got the time and I've just done, lots of grant and nonprofit work, whatever. You're tougher than I am. I'm pretty easy. You want money? Sure, we'll give you money. Maybe you
Give
should
us
be
our
on it.
sales tax back. Oh, Katie goes, yes, I motion for that. I'm
Okay.
gonna be all.
I concur. I'm gonna have Eileen can take that. Fine. That's fine.
Right. So we have 2.
Eileen and Parnell. I would like to make a motion that we appoint Parnell and Eileen to the Fraser Donor Advised Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, now we're at updates.
Sometimes pictured as opposite ends of the board.
What?
Sometimes
Good representation
pictured
of both
as
sides of the
opposite
table.
ends
Oh,
of the
oh,
board,
very
not just the
opposite.
table.
Very opposite, yeah, okay.
We like certain things. I like.
Does anybody have any update? We still have an executive session.
Yeah,
guys, so
we're not out of here.
it's 9.
We're not out of the weeds yet. Bye, thank you. Thanks, Clark.
Okay, updates, last time.
And tonight you have an update, right, for the email distribution?
Oh, you need to go home and get some sleep, I can tell.
So, I am proposing on our website to create a distribution list. So on the town board page right now, anybody can go on and access our directory with the town boards, your individual emails. I'm just proposing to create a distribution list that they could click on one email. It goes to all of you, rather than them having to look in the directory and find each one of your emails individually. And I would propose it would just be the board. There would be no staff on those emails as they can
So
do
you'll
now.
have both. We'll be listed. and then
Correct.
You'll have it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Sounds good.
I'm opposed. I'd rather have them hunt for me.
Well, but you're still
We
the
are on
You're still on there.
I know.
Yeah.
The top was a joke. Literally, I'm at the top of the list.
Yep.
Okay. Everybody's okay.
Is everybody
Yeah,
okay
it's
with that?
fine.
Okay.
We could put it in alphabetical, make it so.
Yeah, then I'd last.
Reverse something.
Okay.
No, you- I do it.
Oh, yeah. Any other updates? Come on, nobody? Okay. Where's their executive session list? Here, you can go.
I move to enter into an executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations and or instructing negotiators under CRS section 24-6-4024E regarding joint facilities oversight committee agenda review to include town manager Michael Brack, Public Works Director Paul Johnson, and wastewater treatment plant superintendent Joe Fucoy.
For a second,
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And then for the public, we will not be coming back because the only other item on here is to adjourn, so we're gonna let the rest of our staff go and we will not be coming back.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
See ya. Good to see you guys.